Round 2 in this twisted dimension. The gods literally banished him here to pay for an unforgivable sin. Blink and boom, he drops straight into a rut, the exact game he grinded for literal decades. Meet Orlando. Sure, he is trapped, but our boy is a total prodigy. He awakened an insane glitch-level power designed to shred any monster in his path. Flexing these pitch-black claws, he just keeps leveling up with every single brawl. His endgame, steamroll everyone and break this reality to pieces. Cut to the Garden of Opulence. Some dude is full-on sprinting through the thick woods, weaving past back-to-back strikes like a Suddenly, raw lightning smashes into the dirt, triggering a brutal shockwave. Stepping right out of the smoke, a gunslinger readies his twin pieces. But the chaos is far from over. More voltage locks onto him. Seconds later, the garden's towering boss lady makes her grand entrance. With a single flick of her finger, she charges up a lethal spell. She drops an absolute storm of electricity onto the gunslinger. He unloads a rapid-fire clip, but she casually deflects every single bullet. Clapping back, the Guardian flings another blindingly bright energy blast right at his face. Launching himself airborne, our guy aims his barrel dead center on her face. Screaming his lungs out, he pulls the trigger point blank. Eating the blast. Taking the damage, she finally staggers backward, definitely feeling that heavy hit. Right after glowing neon rings start spinning completely around her body. Catching the vibe, he instantly realizes she is charging up her massive AoE attack. Going totally on the defense, he uses his guns to parry the incoming barrage. Up above, crazy levels of power start pooling together, spawning a massive swirling vortex. Stretching out her hand, she orders the guy to straight up turn to ash on the spot. Then she nukes the battlefield, sending a giant laser right at the gunslinger. Slamming into the dirt, the sheer force triggers an explosion that absolutely flattens the entire zone. Once the smoke clears, the boss lady floats backward, gliding gracefully through the totally wrecked landscape. Assuming she totally dusted him, she flashes this smug little smirk. Triggered by her attitude, a voice barks out, demanding to know what is so funny. He flashes right back in, aiming his piece and catching the crazy chick totally off guard. Right before pulling the trigger, he drops a cold goodbye, flexing that it is officially game over, but a sudden jolt of raw lightning erupts from her body, zapping the guy point blank. Before he can even pop off the shot, a massive explosion detonates, yeeting the dude across the map with insane kinetic force. Skidding hard across the dirt, he tries to brake, but the momentum is way too heavy. Shaken up, he starts complaining that no one warned him about her hidden passive skill. Right on cue, somebody catches him. He immediately rejects the offer, snapping at the guy to stay entirely out of his one-on-one. Smirking. The newcomer hints that ignorance is total bliss. Then, dropping all the jokes, he just intensely locks eyes with his grumpy teammate. Shifting gears, they glance up and spot the blue chick charging up another devastating move. The new guy offers to tag in again, but our gunslinger tells him to shut his trap, actually chuckling at the wild chaos. The boss lady dares them to dodge her dragons. Out of nowhere, two colossal dragons made of pure crackling electricity just spawn straight onto the field, staring down the giant beasts. The new guy points out it is her ultimate move and calls to split up, but the gunslinger completely loses his mind, screaming, "No way," swearing he is going to solo this raid completely alone. Ignoring all the rage, the blonde dude rushes blindly forward, hollering that he is calling dibs on the black dragon. He shouts that he is pushing ahead while our gunslinger frantically barks at him to fall the heck back. Pivoting back to face the dragon, the gunner continues to roast his teammate for totally kill-stealing. Screaming his lungs out, he demands the guy stop moving right now. Meanwhile, the blonde just readies up to tank the giant dragon all by himself. The boss lady just watches the whole clown show unfold. As time feels like it stops, a massive grinding clockwork structure up in the sky starts spinning like totally crazy. Stuck dead in the center, the partner just stares blankly at the dragon charging right at his face, utterly confused. The gunslinger starts raging hard, helplessly, watching this extremely messy sequence play out in real time. Boom, the sky mechanism fully boots up with maximum power. A giant phantom gear physically spawns and clamps violently onto the arm of our average high school wannabe edgelord. Actually, I mean the gunslinger. Panicking hard, he screams that he never asked for a carry, yelling at that absolute clown of a teammate to back the heck off. He keeps raging about how he explicitly told the guy to chill since the dude just randomly crashed his solo boss fight, begging the system to let him go. He swears this entire mess is not on him. As the crazy contraption closes in, he screams at them to stop this troll move. A split second later, the whole platform just blips out of existence, sending him straight into a free fall while crying for a quick do-over. He finally face plants right back into the forest dirt. Right as he eats the dirt, his partner zooms across the screen at maximum speed, whipping around to look. He smirks, bragging that his buddy would be totally cooked without him. Then he squares up ready to tank the massive energy dragon head-on. Suddenly, his smirk drops. Total confusion hits his face. Sprinting over to his teammate, he screams asking why the heck he's just chilling on the floor. Sporting a violently battered eye, his buddy just stares back in dead silence. Flashbacks hit him hard. He relives the brutal beatdown his partner just took. Boiling with rage, the guy snaps, raging about how stupidly long it took for backup to arrive. Sprawled out in the dirt, he points the finger, screaming that his teammate completely trashed the entire run. Hearing the toxic rant, our guy just watches. Zero reaction. Through a heavily glitching, pixelated screen, he casually drops a, "Whatever, I don't care." Smash cut to reality. The actual player behind the blonde avatar leans back and groans, whining that the wipe totally wasn't his fault. Welcome to the hardcore universe of Dungeon & Fighter. In this MMO, most players sweat buckets and treat every single raid like a life-or-death situation. But amidst the tryhards, a few total wildcards stand out by making the most unhinged choices imaginable. Right on cue, some random dude pops up deep into character trying to confirm if he's actually speaking to the legendary Orlando. The gunner begs for backup, acting like the literal world is ending. He pleads with them to squad up and take down the final boss. But Orlando just scoffs, asking if the noob just wants a free carry. He hits him with maximum edge, claiming he fights alone and is destined for a solo crusade. Staring at his monitor, our guy is genuinely shook by the insane level of absolute roleplay and immersion this dude is pulling off. He mutters to himself, wondering who the heck treats a basic boss raid like a hardcore movie script. Still completely baffled, he chuckles. It's weird, but honestly, it's absolute gold for his stream. He fully admits he's milking this bizarre encounter for the views. Cut to his active livestream. Meet Orlando, a sweaty veteran Dungeon & Fighter player and full-time content creator. He figures this role-playing fanboy specifically hunted him down because, meanwhile, his Twitch chat is absolutely losing it over this whole interaction, deciding to just roll with the meme. Orlando types back that he'd do anything to protect the land of Arad. But then it clicks. He realizes this random guy is probably just stream sniping to get some cheap clout on camera. Suddenly, the role player drops a super toxic insult in the chat and rage quits the party. And right at that exact millisecond, his entire PC just completely dies. He literally jumps out of his gaming chair. Panicking hard, he lunges for the power cable, desperate to save his setup before the system completely bricks. He internally screams, terrified that his whole recording is corrupted and he'll have zero content to post today. Breathing a massive sigh of relief when he sees the video file is safe, he grumbles that the salty player could have literally just used a revive token instead. Looking back at the footage, he chuckles, joking that the dude acted like he actually died in real life. Talk about hovering his mouse over the game icon, he clicks ready to boot it right back up. But wait. Out of nowhere, the actual digital icon on his monitor, mind totally blown, he completely freezes, unable to process the glitch. Then, reality fractures. His entire bedroom violently splinters into tiny pieces. Just like fragile glass, everything his shelves, his collectible anime figures, starts disintegrating and raining down onto the floor. The ground vanishes beneath his feet. Plunging into the abyss, he screams his lungs out in pure terror, utterly clueless about what's happening. "What the heck is happening to my room?" he shrieks. Out of the blinding darkness, a towering, godlike female figure materializes right in his face. She snatches him midair. Paralyzed by shock, he just stares up at her towering form, completely unable to process a single thought. Glaring down at the gamer, she aggressively points the finger, condemning him for interfering and shattering the sacred blade. Now, physically trapped inside the game world, he stammers, "Who are you? Where am I?" as she demands he takes full responsibility for his mess. Boom! The invisible floor shatters again, sending him free-falling. Now he's plummeting through a massive, bright blue sky right beside a colossal floating whale. Rushing toward the ocean below, he zips past flocks of giant birds. Hurled at breakneck speed, he violently slams into a jagged cliffside. Tumbling down into a dense, mysterious forest, he hacks and coughs, struggling to breathe after the brutal impact. Groaning in the dirt, his hand brushes against a heavy sword. Gripping the hilt, he gasps, "What in the actual heck just happened?" Then something trips him out. Pure shock washes over his face. Staring down at his own completely transformed, pixel-perfect hands, he freaks out. "What's wrong with my hands?" But before his brain can even compute this reality, a massive shockwave erupts violently, blasting him backward through the trees. Swallowed by roaring flames, he screams in agonizing pain, his new body feeling the scorching heat of the blast. Meanwhile, a horrific horde of beasts stomps through the burning woods. Out of the smoke, a mysterious, edgy woman stalks right up to one of the gnarly creatures. Still laid out in the dirt, she stomps over, absolutely furious. "Who the hell are you?" she snarls, promising he's gonna pay. Panicking, he frantically stammers out an apology. But he stammers, pointing out that her wild flames are literally just making the fire worse. The crazy girl in red just glares and tells him to shut his trap. Without hesitating, she commands the monsters to attack, screaming about getting absolute vengeance for her burning forest. Beyond desperate, our streamer scrambles to his feet, sprinting for his life as a hulking giant beast charges straight for his head. Dodging through the fiery chaos, he wildly looks around, completely lost, frantically trying to survive a brutal boss fight he didn't even sign up for. Bro trips over his own feet, eating absolute dirt. He tumbles down a steep cliffside and plunges straight into a freezing river. Thrashing around, he breaks the surface, gasping for dear life like he just ran a marathon. He instantly panics as a whole mob of freaky monsters swarms closer. What the actual hell is going on right now? The entire forest around him is literally engulfed in a raging inferno. A mysterious woman barks orders at her minions to hunt him down, totally convinced he hasn't escaped. Ducking behind a massive boulder, our guy spots literal goblins and beefed-up minotaurs roaming the area. Wait a second. He instantly recognizes them. These are totally mobs from the game Dungeon and Fighter. Glancing down at his own epic armor, it clicks. He's rocking the Dark Knight class. Mind totally blown, he questions his own sanity. Is he actually trapped inside the DNF universe? Flashing back to reality, he lets out a pathetic groan. Bro literally just wanted to chill and game in his room. Clueless and freaking out about how to log out, a massive surprise attack absolutely obliterates the tree right behind his head. Through the smoke, a hulking Tau beast looms over him. Meanwhile, that creepy woman chills on a cliff, just enjoying the show. But right as he's about to get clobbered, a super familiar silhouette completely crashes the party. A brand new warrior drops into the absolute chaos, ruthlessly stomping a defeated monster's skull into the dirt. The newcomer glares at the woman, demanding to know how she breached this zone. Our guy stares in awe. That's totally the iconic Ghost Knight class. And, hold up. Right beside him is Saria, the literal beginner NPC. Everyone meets on day one. Listening to their dramatic banter, it hits him. This exact cutscene is straight out of the game's tutorial, which means that Ghost Knight is 100% a real human player just grinding the starter quest. The dude's username is literally floating right over his head. Gripping his blade, the player locks in for battle. Dashing forward, the player launches a sick aerial strike. The woman slides back instantly, retaliating with a scorching fireball. She unleashes a crazy barrage of flaming blasts, but the warrior just weaves through them like a total tryhard with insane reflexes. Spotting a massive opening, the player leaps into the sky to pop a special skill. He dive bombs straight down, smashing the earth, and triggers a nuclear-level shockwave. The brutal impact violently launches the woman backwards. Stumbling to her feet, she shrieks in pure rage, charging up an ultimate fiery blast to end him. But the warrior doesn't even hesitate. She spots his fatal dash and tries to block, but she's completely outplayed. With one flawless slash, he runs his blade clean through her. The pure force of the hit sends her flying like a ragdoll. Watching from the bushes, our guy is absolutely stunned. Yo, seeing that in VR is wild. Staring at the defeated boss, he can't help but realize how crazy brutal this reality actually is. Yet somehow, she drags herself up, smirking that she finally gets how he bypassed her defenses. Coughing up blood, she drops some cryptic lore about a past tragedy. Meanwhile, our hero realizes this pro gamer could totally be his ticket out of here. Sprinting toward him, he opens his mouth to scream for help. But out of nowhere, some freaky glowing gear system spawns right in his face. The villain whines about failing to put out the forest fires. Suddenly, the weird mechanical gears clamp tightly around our guy's throat, completely muting his voice. Total panic sets in. He's totally paralyzed, choking on air, unable to make a single sound. Then a creepy system voice whispers in his head to keep playing, leaving him shook to the core. The defeated boss warns the player they're literally walking toward their doom, nodding at her warning. The pro player just turns his back and escorts the NPC away. Still gagged in the bushes, our guy helplessly watches his only rescue ride walk right out of his life. The second they're gone, the metal gears on his face start whirring and spinning. With a sharp click, the trap violently detaches from his jaw. Gasping for sweet oxygen, he kicks himself for losing the ultimate carry and curses whatever buggy system silenced him. Completely triggered, he refuses to just lay down and die here. Screaming into the void, he swears absolutely nothing in this cursed world will keep him down. But 5 seconds later, the adrenaline wears off. Yeah, nope. I am so cooked. Hard cut to the next zone. And he somehow wandered into a pitch-black, nightmare-fuel swamp area. Wait, the Shadow Thunderland. The realization hits him like a truck. He's still trapped in the game's brutal tutorial dungeon. Glowing red eyes start popping up in the shadows. Yeah, he really needs to speedrun this and catch up. A wet crunch behind him makes him whip around. A horde of cursed shadow freaks steps into the moonlight, and he lets out the most pathetic, high-pitched scream. Totally surrounded, his gamer brain immediately scans the mob. Ghouls, flesh-eaters, and literal zombies. His absolute worst nightmare just went live. Screaming at the beast to back the hell up, he flexes his weapon. But the creature literally couldn't care less and lunges straight for him. In a flash, it chokeslams him, gripping his throat with insane force. The monster finally reveals its true terrifying form, sending pure panic straight down the kid's spine. Sprinting for his life, he screams that these mobs look absolutely nothing like the game. He's freaking out, wondering why they are so ridiculously overpowered here when they were straight up fodder before. A sudden scream rips through the air. He whips around instantly, recognizing that voice. Saria is super close. Spotting the chaotic brawl, he yells that the random player from earlier has got to be over there. Zero hesitation. He books it toward the chaos at full speed. Closing the gap, he spots the warrior blasting the boss with a massive frost skill. But right nearby, Saria is completely frozen solid inside a block of ice. With a massive shatter, the frost beast violently breaks out of its icy prison. And just like that, the dungeon boss Ghoulish finally steps out of the shadows in all his terrifying glory. He stands there absolutely shell-shocked. Rushing toward the player, he begs for just a second to talk. But right then, the boss swings its massive weapon straight at them. Confused by the guy's zero reaction, he desperately shouts his name again. Bam! The player takes a direct hit and gets launched across the room by a brutal ice blast. The magic impact sends a lethal ice spike flying, narrowly missing his head. After taking that heavy hit, the phantom warrior gets completely sealed inside a solid chunk of ice. Watching the carnage, the boss growls, warning them to stay out of his way. Panicking, the guy violently pounds on the ice, screaming at the player to wake up. He is losing his mind trying to figure out why the dude is AFK. But while he is distracted, a creep completely blindsides him. Taking the brutal hit, the beast's razor-sharp claws rip a deep gash right across his chest. Screaming in sheer agony, reality hits him hard. This damage is totally real, and it is fatal. Another monster rushes in for the kill. Somehow, he barely manages to parry the strike with his blade. Shaking and crying out in pain, he desperately holds the vicious creature back. Going into full panic mode, he shrieks that it burns and he is literally going to die. Pressing hard against the blade, the beast bares its bloodthirsty fangs. Refusing to get a game over, he screams out for his life. Channeling every single drop of strength left in his body, he slices the monster totally in half. Glancing to the side, he is absolutely stunned. But with one mob down, he grips his sword, bracing himself for the incoming swarm. Zero time to think. More creatures charge at him with killer intent. Gripping his hilt, he suddenly starts vibing with the insane potential of this new body. Flashing a super cocky smirk, he spins around to face the entire horde. Wielding his blade, he starts slicing and dicing every single creep in his path like an absolute boss. Over a decade of gaming knowledge floods his mind. Every single combo, every skill, it is all totally hardwired into his brain. Visualizing the skill tree, he realizes he can actually spam them right now. The second he thinks about an attack, his body just auto-executes the move perfectly. Staring down the monster, he declares that this fight is already over. But the boss ain't having it and instantly snaps back, unleashing a massive, devastating ice blast. Right as the attack hits, a holographic skill card pops up in his face. Firing off a savage uppercut, he instantly shatters the ice and closes the gap on the boss. No breaks, he launches into a nasty combo sequence. He drops a basic attack, instantly linking it into a lightning-fast slash. Keeping the momentum alive, he chains another brutal basic hit. Finishing the combo, he lands a devastating final strike that rocks the boss's world. But the massive beast clutches it out, spawning a giant ice wall for defense. A colossal frozen fortress suddenly erupts right in the middle of the forest. Thinking he completely blocked it, the boss bursts into arrogant laughter. But out of nowhere, a blinding light completely floods the battlefield. Capitalizing on the opening, he dashes straight in, catching the monster totally off guard. The beast just stares at him, absolutely flabbergasted. Without missing a beat, he swings his blade, shredding the confused boss with a flurry of vicious slashes. The monster is totally clueless about what's even happening. Smirking, he explains that the system totally lets you animation cancel and endlessly chain your attacks. Shredded by the insane combo, the boss starts literally crumbling into pieces, turning into nothing but shattered ice. Flexing his game knowledge, he drops the name, the skill combo system. Pausing for dramatic effect, he smirks. This is literally the most basic mechanic for playing Dark Knight. Totally wrecked and defeated, the boss lies completely crushed on the ground, twitching in sheer agony with 0 HP left. He knew he had to reboot that magic circle right away. Wasting zero time, he plunged his broadsword straight through the monster's skull, burying the steel blade incredibly deep. He muttered under his breath, totally forgetting how annoying these ghouls could actually be. Finally executed, the monster's body slowly glitched and faded into dust right before his eyes. Just seconds later, a massive glowing magic circle spawned on the ground right next to Saria. Watching the whole insane scene unfold, he stood there utterly confused, realizing that this epic dungeon event had basically only just begun. He just dead-ass stared at the glitchy card in his palms. Gripping it tight, he couldn't help but wonder, how the heck this thing ended up here? Suddenly, bam, the card completely shattered, blasting a blinding flash of neon across the whole zone. Out of that insane glow stepped the exact same chick from before, straight up levitating like an absolute boss. Totally over it, he screamed that he wasn't doing this garbage again. Unfazed, she hyped him up for clearing step 1 of the trial, to become the ultimate flame bearer. Seething with pure rage, he finally clocked who she was and dropped her name. It clicked that this was Namir, the literal goddess of wisdom. He called her out, stating she was a cosmic being who hopped between dimensions. "You're literally an NPC," he roared, completely losing his mind and questioning reality itself. She smoothly explained she had been low-key stalking him because he was the only one who could clutch this mission. Stunned, he complained that she blatantly dodged his whole question. Then, a core memory unlocked in the game. The word blade literally just meant adventurer. This huge red flag made him realize, did she drag him into this server for a totally different side quest? Smirking like a menace, the goddess simply pointed a finger right at him, making him shriek in pure panic. "Hell no," he snapped, demanding an instant fast travel back to his bed. Unbothered, she fired back that starting right now, this entire mess was 100% on him. "Make it make sense," he hollered, demanding to know what kind of messed up karma she was even yapping about. Out of nowhere, a razor-sharp spike launched forward, sinking straight into Orlando's skull. Just like that, a massive wave of buried memories hijacked his brain. He watched himself absolutely throwing the game, ruining every single thing, and witnessing his entire playthrough crash and burn. While he stood there completely stun-locked, the goddess casually turned her back and strolled away. Snapping out of the vision, he grabbed his face, agony ripping through his head. Dropping to his knees, the massive info dump left him brutally dizzy and gasping for air. Nemir then dropped a massive lore bomb that wrecked Blade the Gunslinger was actually a real dude from his exact same universe. She spilled the tea because that guy arrogantly tried to cheat the Blade's destiny. The Time Lords had to step in and nerf him to oblivion. Locking eyes with him, she coldly declared this chaotic timeline was entirely his fault. Shook to his core, he realized, wait, was the Ranger literally a living, breathing human being all along? Catching his absolute horror, the goddess just flashed a toxic little smirk. Swiping the air, she pulled up a hologram showing a nasty digital rot infecting the entire realm of Arad. When he asked what the heck he was looking at, she revealed this viral glitch was sabotaging the Blade's awakening quests. She gave a chilling warning that if this bug kept spreading, this whole dimension would crash into a dark, twisted timeline. So she handed him the ultimate quest to become the guide the blacksmith's tongs and carry these blades to victory. Brain literally frying, he demanded to know what these trials were and why he had to babysit them. Suddenly a flashback hit him hard. The player was supposed to aggro the mobs while Saria cleansed the magic circle. It hit him like a truck that if he hadn't spawned in, right there, Saria would have been totally wiped out. He finally got it. This corruption was a game-breaking bug, and as the guide he was the patch note meant to fix it. With a slow nod, the goddess confirmed that was exactly his job description. Deciding he was up to speed, she literally yeeted him off a massive cliff. "Find the source code and purge this world," she commanded. Free falling through the sky, he screamed that she was acting like he actually swiped right on this suicide mission. Echoing from above, she promised to warp him back to reality the second he cleared the final boss. Salty as hell, he shouted that he needed some overpowered skills if he was stuck playing a level 1 scrub. Mid-drop, his trajectory teleported him into a glowing cave packed with blood-red crystals. She chimed in, saying she couldn't give him god mode, but she could drop some loot. Scanning the stash, his jaw dropped as he realized these were ultra-rare skins and legendary tier gear, but then he spotted a hidden option and a big brain strategy lit up his mind. The goddess was utterly speechless when he bypassed all the shiny mythic weapons, totally ignored her top picks, and demanded a permanent lock on the king's contract buff. Shaking her head, she granted the insane request, buffing him exactly how he wanted. A second later, a glowing golden crown materialized right in front of his face. The legendary artifact fused directly into his chest, permanently sealing the twisted pact between them. Now dripping with crazy new buffs, he braced himself for whatever hell was coming next. Caught off guard as literal flames erupted from his skin, he stared at his palms, completely hyped by the massive power surge. Getting greedy, he begged for more stats, asking for an infinite stamina glitch or something equally busted. Rolling her eyes, she toggled off his human hunger and zeroed out his physical fatigue. He started whining that this wasn't the kind of infinite stamina he meant, but she instantly muted him. She dropped one last warning there wouldn't be any more summons, so he had to track her down in the overworld himself. Fading away, she hinted that a fragment of her soul was hiding inside the dimensional corridor, leaving him with a smirk and a challenge to prove he wasn't a total noob. Poof! The goddess vanished into thin air. Stranded back in the eerie woods, our guy couldn't help but totally lose it over this cursed situation. Catching a glimpse of the actual player again, he immediately played it off, blaming his frozen state on some massive lag spike, not buying it the player's sidekick. Leaned in asking if our rookie adventurer was losing his mind. Scanning the bizarre scene, the player actually wondered if a glitch locked his character in place. Pointing off into the distance, he hyped them up to check out this glowing magic circle that just spawned out of nowhere. No cap, without wasting a single second. He figured shadowing this duo was his ultimate survival strat, busting out through the dense tree line. A golden sunrise finally pierced the horizon, painting the sky with raw hope. Sticking to the shadows like a total ninja, he tailed them straight into a nearby settlement. Crouched out of sight, a wild thought hit him. Was this the legendary Elvengard? Every single pixel matched the game perfectly, blasting him with hardcore nostalgia. Yet despite the familiar vibes, this entire isekai fever dream still felt crazy unreal. But honestly, through all the brain fog, one brutal truth stayed locked in his mind, flashing back to that tragic fate of the Ranger. He swore right then and there to absolutely block any more senseless game overs. Sprinting like a madman, he screamed his lungs out, vowing to conquer this messed up reality. No matter the cost. Trekking back into the wild, his main quest clicks, he's gotta debug this corrupted storyline. While grinding forward, he dives deep into his glitchy stats. Swiping open his holographic UI to analyze his beginner loot, his jaw literally drops. Sitting right there, in his inventory, his trusty wooden practice blade. That sneaky goddess Namir actually returned it. After scavenging some sketchy wild berries, he calls it quits on the gathering phase. Next up, he pops open his player profile only to realize the system is completely scuffed. So many features are straight up dead. Bro can't even see his own HP bar. Brushing off the panic, he zeroes in on his second major flex, his core stats. Spoiler alert, his adventurer cloud is sitting at rock bottom. Echoing the goddess's cryptic warning, he knows his endgame is breaching the Archmage's dimensional corridor. But to unlock that ultimate fast travel back to the real world, he desperately needs to grind some serious street cred. Peeking at the raid requirements, the dungeon demands a sweaty 38,095 reputation points. He checks his profile. Bro is rocking a pathetic 6. Pushing past the cringe, he marches onward, finally realizing that Goddess Namir isn't some holy savior after all. Even if he somehow survives the corridor, her shady vibes scream trap. Slashing through low-level mobs, a dark thought creeps in. Will that deity ever actually let him log out? As pitch black night falls, he sparks a campfire to chill out in the eerie woods. Chowing down on a foraged fruit, it suddenly hits him. He doesn't feel a single drop of hunger, nor any taste. Flashbacks hit hard that so-called illuminated Namir preached that corruption would completely wipe Arid off the map. But her true endgame, resurrecting the creator god for a hard server reset. And that meant absolute unfiltered destruction. The entire planet would just shatter. The whole universe shredded into unfixable code. Sticking by Namir's side was basically signing a death warrant for Arad's total annihilation. Staring blankly at the dancing flames, he spirals over this nightmare fuel. Shaking it off, he locks in. Bro just needs his ticket home. It's just a game, he mutters, with tunnel vision. He vows to play as dirty as it takes to survive. Standing like a boss on a jagged cliff, he roars his next drop zone out loud. Hendon Meyer, rolling up to the massive Capitol gates, he loses track of how many days he actually spent grinding. But right at the entrance, the royal guards violently cross their spears, barking at him to freeze. Blocked like a total noob, he just awkwardly stares at the cold steel in pure confusion. What the heck is happening? Suddenly a massive brain fade hits him. There's a brutal paywall to enter the city. Right on cue, a bulky dude named Linus spawns in, casually asking if he's broke and needs the toll fee. Squinting closer, our boy totally recognizes this iconic legend, leaving Linus completely weirded out by the intense staring. Then the light bulb clicks. This is the exact NPC designed to hand out free starter cash. He desperately grabs the blacksmith's arm, begging for the coins. Linus raises an eyebrow, firing back that he doesn't just fund random hobos, for absolutely no reason. Flashing back to the quest lore, our guy decides to pull an Oscar-worthy performance to hack his trust. He cooks up this totally wild sob story about his sick bestie suffering from a cursed ghost arm, shamelessly begging on his knees. He dramatically claims his bro is literally seconds away from getting devoured by the dark plague. Linus just stands there, dead silent, zero reaction, sweating bullets from the awkward pause. He panics, thinking his emotional acting was a mega flop. But then, splash. Heavy tears hit the dirt. Linus unexpectedly starts bawling his eyes out, leaving our guy absolutely shook. Trying to play it cool, Linus sniffs, blaming the waterworks on some imaginary dust, tossing over a shiny blade and a fat bag of loot. The blacksmith grunts that he won't even miss the junk. Hyped beyond belief, he aggressively bows while the buff NPC stomps off into the distance. Right before vanishing, the absolute Chad yells out, wishing him epic luck on saving his dying buddy. Sprinting like a maniac through the bustling streets, he wildly flexes his entry pass, finally celebrating his hype return to Hendenmeyer. He lets out a massive sigh of relief, thanking his lucky stars he actually remembered that official license profile. Stepping up to the plate, a tiny wave of guilt hits him for scamming the blacksmith, but he instantly brushes it off. I mean, Linus is literally just an NPC, so it is a free pass. The massive city gates slowly creak open, welcoming him in. Striding through the entrance, he spots a whole bunch of familiar faces just chilling around the area. His jaw absolutely drops, taking in the city for the first time. It is stunning. Strolling down the main street, he completely geeks out over the insane realism. Feeling hyped, he loudly flexes that only those who push their limits can grab the win. Out of nowhere, the brawler Chobung jumps him, catching him completely off guard. He instantly clocks her as the legendary champ of the local tournament. Smirking, she calls him strong and challenges him to a hardcore brawl. But then glowing text boxes suddenly pop up in midair all around him. Turns out other players are totally roasting him for talking to himself like a weirdo. Panic sets in as it hits him every single word he just said got broadcasted straight to the public chat. Crashing to the floor in sheer agony, he screams from the absolute cringe. Sprinting away, he suddenly remembers the ranger used to pull the exact same stunt. Seeing the whole crowd dying of laughter, he snaps, yelling at them to shut up right now. Cut to the next scene, he is just booking it aimlessly through the massive city streets. Gasping for air after that massive sprint, he finally stops praying to God. Nobody tailed him. Swearing to never talk to himself again, something familiar catches his eye. He ends up standing right in front of the iconic Moonlight Tavern sign. Peeking inside, flashbacks hit him of grinding at this spot back in his noob days. Since the joint is packed with players, he realizes this is the perfect chance to snatch some juicy intel. Navigating through the crowd, he checks out the other adventurers, just kicking back and resting. But as he steps deeper and a whole squad of pros glares dead at him and feeling totally intimidated, he seriously debates just dipping out. Instead, he pushes through to the bar, where the badass owner warmly greets him, totally freezing up. He awkwardly orders a plain glass of milk. Quickly pivoting, he asks if anything shady is going down, but she just smirks and says he is the only shady thing around. Pausing to think she actually remembers something pretty weird going on after all. She points straight at a massive anvil chilling in the corner, totally catching him off guard. Staring at it, he admits it is kind of cool, but definitely not the clue he needed. Right on cue, Saria bursts into the tavern with another girl, sparking up a super familiar cutscene dialogue. He instantly realizes that the second girl is actually rocking a fighter class. Speedrunning their quest, the duo completely ignores him and bolts straight toward the back rooms of the tavern. Suddenly, a very familiar voice echoes out, trashing clueless newbies who refuse to listen. Some dude just keeps whining about how noobs act like big shots. Instantly, a younger guy claps back, demanding he show some respect, because these are straight-up orders from the captain. Shook to his core, he cannot believe what he is hearing from that squad. His mind races, wondering why the legendary Iron Wolf Knight Order is hanging out here. Like the Iron Wolves literally serve the Empire, and their main questline right now is investigating the Sky Tower. Players usually run missions with them, but way out in a totally different zone of the map. That is exactly why it feels so wildly out of place for this elite Knight Order to just spawn inside a random pub. Then it hits him. Fiona the blonde with the short hair and Dan the edgy dude in the black helmet are NPCs you are strictly supposed to run into at the Sky Tower's Puppet Museum. And Lenny, that little strawberry cookie, is normally locked to the lobby. None of them have any business being in this tavern right now. Watching them chat, the realization drops they have completely bypassed that whole section of the storyline. As the knights start hunting down the player character, his gut screams that this has to be the game corruption. Everyone is hyping up online. Watching the duo say their goodbyes and storm out of the tavern, he knows it is time to make a move. He decides to shadow them straight to the tower to see this glitch play out. Tailing them, he overhears that the captain is weirdly obsessed with the explorer for some hidden reason. Now his main objective is to figure out exactly which of these three knights is corrupted. To fix this mess, he gears up to physically block their path. But right at the entrance, the guards aggressively cross their spears, deadlocking him out. Absolutely fed up with being gatekept, he unleashes a savage verbal beat. From the shadows, a mysterious dude just stands there watching the sheer chaos unfold. Desperate to break in, Roger Levin flashes in his mind, and he sprints off to track down the NPC. Crashing into the shop, the assistant awkwardly drops the bomb that Roger is out traveling completely, leaving him on red. Dropping to his knees, he utterly loses it over the bad news, loudly apologizing for the whole mess. Punching the floor in pure frustration, he screams internally, how on earth does an NPC just ditch their shop at the worst possible time? Out of nowhere, the mystery dude hollers at him from behind, leaving him totally tripped up. The guy smoothly strolls up to the tower guards, casually flexing a VIP pass under the name Roger Levin to secure their entry. The guard gives the paperwork a quick, ocular pat-down. Green light. He waves the mysterious stranger right through the massive tower doors. Spotting his golden ticket, Orlando instantly snatches the guy's hand, basically begging to know if he is dead serious. Sprinting inside, he is absolutely hyping himself up over scoring a party invite and tagging along. Orlando is practically bowing in gratitude, hyping the stranger up for the massive carry, but the dude's vibe suddenly flips to dead serious. He admits he has been low-key stalking Orlando around the city for a minute. Then bursting into absolute hysterics, the guy roasts Orlando's roleplay style, calling it peak comedy. Stuttering like crazy, Orlando tries to defend himself, insisting he is not role-playing, but the dude is just rolling on the floor laughing. Wiping his tears, the guy actually promises to solo wipe Behemoth for him just as a reward for the premium laughs. Caught totally off guard, Orlando instantly curves the offer, claiming he straight up cannot accept the hard carry. Panicking, he aggressively yells to disband the party, shattering his alliance with the random player. Flipping the camera over to the other player's POV, a system pop-up shows Orlando dipped. Staring at the blank screen, he totally bums out over the rage quit, missing the kid's hilarious energy. He scratches his head, wondering why he could never catch a glimpse of the kid's username. Meanwhile, deep inside the tower, Orlando breathes a massive sigh of relief, soaking in the absolute unit of a structure from the inside. Speed running up the stairs. He makes a mental note to dodge that overpowered player at all costs. Hitting a massive corridor, he freezes his eyes, locked on the brutally long path, stretching out before him. Totally lost in the sauce, he wonders where his original trio vanished, to realizing he seriously needs to step on the gas. Catching the echo of footsteps, he whips around to peep the drama on the staircase. That is exactly when he spots Fiona going off on Dan, roasting him for totally failing to dodge an incoming hit. Dan immediately claps back, claiming he was just tanking for the scout. But Lenny shuts it down, telling him to chill out. Shook to his core, Orlando watches the knights straight up abandon the girl, and his inner detective alarm starts screaming red flags. The math suddenly starts mathing. The low-tier knights were never the dirty ones. The real sus energy was radiating straight from Captain Bang Valeste, the big boss, pulling all the strings. Blasting up the staircase, he pushes his agility stats to the max to reach the summit, launching into a massive leap. He aims for a crazy shortcut to shave off climbing time. Sweating over the upcoming clash, he is terrified that this toxic corruption might infect the rest of the crew. Muttering that he has got to clutch this, he basically parkours through a massive mob blocking his path. Out of nowhere, a massive beast lunges in with a bone-crushing bite. Feeling the raw damage, he clocks that this giant flying menace actually managed to slice his face. Reacting on pure instinct, he aggressively swipes open his inventory screen to pull a weapon. Ripping out his sword, he smashes the skull of the beast, pinning him down. But his victory is short-lived, as a whole swarm of creatures dive-bombs him for the takedown. Somehow, he tanks the monster's massive rush. Knowing he totally dropped his guard, he firmly braces himself for the next wave of chaos. About to drop. Looking around, he realizes it is a trap. He is absolutely boxed in inside the tower's brutal dungeon. While he is busy farming the small fry, a hulking boss-level beast winds up a devastating strike. The second he drops one of the grunts, the giant unit charges at him like a freight train. Gripping his hilt until his knuckles turn white, he pours every single drop of his energy into one desperate counter. Using a dropped enemy spear for leverage, he delivers a wildly crispy kick straight to the beast's face. Immediately, another mob swings for his head, but he effortlessly parries it, launches himself sky high, and rains down an absolutely cracked sword combo. He goes full sicko mode on the horde. Flipping backward to create space, he locks eyes with the final two heavy-hitter monsters, clocking the absolute mess he is in. He knows trying to solo this is just asking to get clapped. Boxed in from every angle, his window to parry slams shut. As the alpha monster winds up a lethal slam, he spams a skill button, but the beast is way too fast, ripping a shockwave through the floor that sends him flying across the room. The impact leaves him totally grounded, his MP bar completely zeroed out. Gasping for air, he immediately kicks himself for not grinding levels before this tower raid. Boom! A massive crimson shadow materializes right behind him, vaulting directly over his head. The entity unleashes an AoE attack, literally roasting the entire mob. The heavy strike connects, melting the enemies into glowing cinders mid-fight. Catching sight of the statue, a light bulb goes off. He remembers this exact cheesy mechanic from the game. Memory unlocked. Hiding at the very end of the statue lineup was a legendary Easter egg. Weaving through the blazing mobs, he full sprints straight to the back of the massive tower corridor. Touching down, he's hyped to spot a max heal circle glowing on the floor. With his HP fully restored, he blitzes the flying mobs that cornered him earlier. His strikes start landing dead center, wiping out whole squads in one go. In a flash, he completely clears the room of the remaining mobs. After that, chaotic grind, he pauses to finally catch his breath. That's when it hits him he's actually leveling up. After shredding so many enemies with his brand new weapon, he vows to ride this wave and get insanely overpowered. Right then, charging up a fresh attack, the monsters swarm him all at once. He pops a new skill, slicing through the horde with a massive cross slash. While the goons drop like flies, the pack leader just watches the chaos. Launching himself into the air, our boy dashes straight for the alpha. Shouting out his attack name, he unleashes a lightning-fast 3-hit combo on the beast. Then, spinning his blade, he drops a whirlwind strike to clear the zone. Hyped by the rush, he brags that he literally feels like the main character. He realizes signing the king's contract was a massive W. Taunting the leftovers, he yells at them to rush him all at once. But right on cue, the actual floor boss finally spawns right in the center of the massive hall. Spotting the new threat, he smirks and says the guy should have shown up way earlier. Back when he was actually weak, the boss Lachius growls that he saw some pests trashing his tower. He barks at the Draconians to scrub the place clean immediately, and Orlando instantly dodges the incoming assault. Sidestepping the strike, he readies his blade for a lightning speed counter. With a clean slice to the leg, he injures the beast and buys some breathing room. Then he triggers his shadow slash skill to put the enemy in the dirt for good. Suddenly, another monster lunges. It thinks it landed a hit, but our MC ghosts it at the very last second and locks in for his next move. Trolling the beast, he teases that it's way too slow to touch him. Absolutely triggered. The creature glares point blank, ready to rip Orlando apart. It whiffs completely and smashes a pillar instead, clowning on it. He's clearly loving the monster's confusion until the creature violently socks him right in the face. Popping his quick slash skill, he obliterates multiple mobs with a single swing. Sliding past 2 enemies, he screams as he charges headfirst into the next brawl. Slamming an attack into the floor, he spawns a massive ice field across the room. Thanks to the freeze, the little dragons buzzing around are forced to back off. He snatches the chance, striking both airborne creatures at the exact same time. Getting seriously annoyed, he yells for these annoying mosquitoes to just drop dead already. He fires a ground smash skill, but the impact only confuses the creatures. Right then, one of the mini dragons tags him and the system pops up to explain his combo. Unable to bypass the cooldown, he's forced to chain his skills in the exact order he picked, scrambling to hit his targets. He gets super tilted about having to lock into this strict combo sequence. Frustrated, he realizes he totally wasted the exact same skill twice, taking a heavy hit. He yells that his actual life is on the line here. This isn't some game. A second later, a monster snags him with its tail, slamming him hard into the dirt. The ambush catches him completely off guard, but he uses the beast's own tail as a springboard, delivering a brutal kick to regain his footing. He raises his weapon to crush the monster's skull when out of nowhere, a spear pierces straight through the creature's chest. Lachius gears up to unleash a way heavier attack. The boss fires off a blinding energy beam, straight at our boy across the room. Ignoring the pain, he charges his most cracked skill to counter the boss. He unleashes a massive energy wave right back at the monster, taking it point blank. The tower boss is totally stunned by the blast. Knowing a boss won't fold that easily, he braces himself to keep swinging. But the monster bites back, blasting another energy beam that hits him dead on. Getting pushed way back, he tanks the raw force with his own body. Digging deep, he manages to stall the beam, locking them in an intense standoff. Struggling hard, he holds back the attack, fighting not to snap under the insane pressure as he watches the chaos unfold. The boss is seriously eating this up, stretching its jaws into a twisted grin. With a deafening roar, the monster unleashes a massive blast of raw energy that completely swallows the entire hall. When the smoke clears, Orlando is brutally banged up, staring straight down the blade of the boss's spear. He staggers to his feet, but he is definitely not backing down yet. Bam! A brutal strike catches him off guard, launching him straight into a stone pillar. Completely drained, he gasps for air, desperately trying to lock in for his next move. Lachius is definitely feeling the burn too, but the boss is still standing tall, hungry for more blood. Gripping his weapon, Orlando crushes the hilt with every last ounce of juice he has left. Screaming through the agony, he literally uses his own skull to deliver a gnarly headbutt right into the monster's face. Riding that split-second opening, he slashes upward, dicing the boss in crazy close quarters. He tries to pop another skill, but his legs totally give out, sending him crashing to the dirt, with a super toxic smirk. The boss taunts him, asking if he is finally done playing hero. The beast lunges in for the kill, but Orlando blinks out of the way just in time. And even running on fumes, he starts chaining together a wicked combo of skills. Totally baffled, Lacheus demands to know what the heck he is mumbling about mid-fight, roaring at the top of his lungs. He unleashes an insane surge of aura. Channeling all that stacked energy, he practically nukes the boss with a devastating hook straight to the jaw. Rocked by the impact, the monster is completely paralyzed, totally unable to block, triggering his leap strike skill. Orlando comes crashing down with earth-shattering force. Pinned under the crazy weight, the monster is freaking out, wondering where all this insane pressure came from. Suddenly, cracking this huge, confident grin, Orlando drops the mic on how his new power works. Exposing the true mechanics of his combo line, he proves that dodging was never the point, the real strategy. Stacking up wild amounts of raw power to absolutely delete his enemy with explosive burst damage at the very end. Tanking all that massive damage, Lacheus starts coughing up chunks of blood, but in one desperate final push, he blasts a terrifying aura straight at Orlando. The dark energy violently floods the room completely, swallowing the young adventurer. Gearing up for the ultimate finish, Orlando pops the fifth and final skill of his chain. More combo stacks equal way more damage, ramping all the way up to 200% on hit number 5. Unleashing his absolute limit, he fires off a colossal tsunami of pure energy right at the boss. Using the Grand Wave skill, he strikes with 200% of his max power. As the massive shockwave clears, the Tower of the Sky finally goes dead silent. A blinding, intense light completely washes over the dungeon room, from the aftermath of that finisher. In a totally devastating blast, the energy wave completely vaporizes Lacheus on impact, leaving absolutely nothing behind. Orlando's attack basically shattered the beast into a million pieces. Touching down right on top of the boss's ashes, our guy finally closes the curtain on this brutal fight. Panting heavily, he just mutters the name of this cursed dungeon, the Dragonoid Nest. Collapsing onto the cold stone, totally wiped out, he realizes he actually pulled it off. He finally cleared this insane floor of the tower. But plot twist. A heavily armed squad of knights suddenly kicks down the doors, drawn in by all the crazy explosions. Seeing the sheer massacre everywhere, they're totally shook, wondering what went down before spotting our boy. One of the grunts quickly alerts the vice captain that someone is actually alive in the wreckage. Stepping right over a monster's corpse, Orlando gets the system notification that the Dragonoid Nest is officially cleared. Beyond exhausted, he admits that fight was absolute hell, realizing he probably should have brought backup. Forcing his heavy sword upward, he hypes himself up to push deeper into the Tower of the Sky. Pulling up his stat window, a massive grin spreads across his face. Boom. Level 15. Plus his HP bar was totally full again. Hyped out of his mind, he decides to sweep up all the sweet loot and rush straight to the next floor. But scanning the room, his jaw drops. The boss didn't drop a single item. Super confused. He scratches his head, wondering why this brutal raid yielded absolutely zero loot. Like, where are the drops? That's when the vice captain's deep voice cuts the silence, demanding to know if he soloed this entire mob. Startled by the sudden voice, Orlando practically jumps out of his skin. Running into this guy here was literally not on his bingo card. The imposing man demands his identity, but Orlando instantly recognizes him from the game. It's the legendary Hartz von Kruger. With zero warning, Hartz launches a strike, sending a barrage of vicious blood spikes flying straight at our adventurer. Totally boxed in, Orlando is completely cornered by the elite knights and this terrifying vice captain. Glaring down at him, Hartz barks an order demanding Orlando's name and which guild he's repping. Oh, and he also wants to know exactly how this random kid knows his name. Sweating bullets. Orlando thinks to himself, bro, how could I not know one of the most famous guys ever? Back in the game, he distinctly remembers Hartz being the literal only NPC who never caught a personality nerf from the devs. Getting annoyed by the silence, the vice captain physically snatches him up, forcing Orlando to quickly spill some excuse about his reputation. When Hartz interrogates him about his tower pass, Orlando panics and name drops Roger Levin, claiming he hooked him up. With this absolute death glare, Hartz demands to see the physical pass right now. Shaking in his boots, Orlando stammers out that he doesn't actually have the pass on him, which instantly flips the vice captain from confused to seriously ticked off. Stumbling over his words, our guy pulls the worst lie out of thin air, claiming his buddy on the floor below is holding it for him. So Hartz barks an order demanding our boy lead the way to this so-called friend to fact-check his story, boxed in from all sides. He instantly regrets bumping into this absolute unit of a knight. Sweating the ticking clock, he knows the main player just speedran the lobby dungeon. That meant she was already making a beeline straight for the top floor boss room. On her way up, she'd be squatting up with a bunch of NPCs for the final showdown, and sitting right in that lineup was Captain Van Vallister, the literal epicenter of all this corruption. Terrified that Van was already infected, dread chewed at him over what was about to go down. As the crew marches down, the lead knight suddenly hits the brakes, sensing something totally off. One of the guards whips around, catching a blur of motion. Seizing his window, our guy unleashes a wicked shadow slash to break out. Totally caught off guard, the vice captain is left mind-blown, wondering how he spawned another blade that fast. Gripping his spear, he barely parries the strike, clutching a save for the soldier next to him. That's when Von Kruger realizes the kid just literally ghosted, right in front of his face. Popping back up way past the squad, he dashes forward to widen the gap. Ticked off by the escape, Hearts sneers that he's just spamming cheap tricks and dares him to fight, totally ignoring the bait. Our boy smirks, flexing that he's dropping another escape skill. Boom. He triggers a blinding flashbang, dropping a casual piece out. As he dips, the vice captain screams, ordering him to freeze right there. Orlando quickly scrolls his inventory, spotting a weird new drop. Sitting there, but out of nowhere, a massive weapon gets yeeted at him with insane speed, totally blindsided. He lets out a yelp as the chunk of metal slams him mid-air. Catching his breath, he looks down. It's a literal ticking bomb. The thing detonates right between them with a massive shockwave, tearing the two groups apart. Boiling with rage over losing him, Hearts violently decks one of his own knights. Absolutely losing it, the vice captain screams his lungs out at the runaway who just pulled off the great escape. Then his eyes lock onto some sketchy residue left behind by the blast. Staring at the goo, he scoffs, calling the runaway a total scrub. Off in the distance, he spots our guy standing dead still, staring him down like an absolute boss clutching another bomb. The kid gears up to chuck it and keep sprinting. Catching this vibe, Hearts and his squad instantly go into full defense mode, bracing for the next strike. Sprinting ahead, Hearts roars that he is going to utterly destroy this terrorist the second he catches him. Chuckling, our boy just smirks, noting the blast did basically zero damage, it was just heavy on the base. Hyped that his big brain play actually worked, he gives a mental shout out to Shuja for the clutch tavern loot. Cut to the next scene, the sun is already diving below the horizon of the sky tower. Pushing his stamina to the limit on the stairs, he realizes dusk is basically here. Meanwhile, Saria and the squad are stressing over their missing fighter. Zooming in through the gloom, he finally spots his target lurking higher up in the tower, the exact crew he's been hunting. Startled, Saria clocks his arrival and flags him down as just another random explorer. But then the dude named Agonzo warns him to dip to a safe zone immediately. Hearing that, Van barks at them to back off, snapping that he doesn't want any drama. The second that voice hits his ears, our guy's eyes go wide. He's finally cornered Captain Van Vallister inside this fortress. Sprinting straight at him, he announces the chase is officially over, and readies his weapon to strike. But literal seconds later, the vice captain crashes the party, tracking his trail of pure chaos. Our guy is shook. He never expected this tank to track him down so insanely fast. Boiling with rage, the vice captain growls, calling him one gutsy little punk. Catching the drama, Captain Van turns to Vice Captain Hearts, demanding to know, what on earth is going on down there? So Hearts barks an order, telling the captain to instantly bag the kid, who's been tearing this tower apart. Trapped, he's completely boxed in down the hallway, squished right between the captain and the legendary swordsman Agonzo. Realizing his escape route is basically zero, huge regret washes over him for fumbling into this death trap. Absolutely fuming, the vice captain promises him a world of pain for all his stunts. But then, boom, a glowing orb flares up in the distance, completely hijacking the young adventurer's focus. Pointing like a madman, he screams that there's a dude flying outside on a massive bug. Everyone snaps their heads up, but it's literally just the ceiling. Using that 1-second glitch, our boy Orlando aggressively yeets himself out of the trap, screaming his lungs out as he bolts from the scene. The vice captain and the captain were totally shook by that wild escape stunt. The smashed wall completely split the squad in half. Our fleeing adventurer launched himself into the distance, pulling off a slick getaway. Hitting the dirt, he took a sec to catch his breath from that crazy chase, totally kicking himself over the missed shot. He noticed the corruption hadn't gone full-blown yet. Watching the crew fade into the distance, he figured he absolutely had to cleanse them before hitting the next dungeon. Meanwhile, the fighter was like, who the heck was that guy? Saria just shrugged it off as completely weird, pushing for a quick breather. Vaughn chimed in, saying they could chill for a sec on the next floor, dragging himself up more stairs. Our guy kept tracking the squad even though he was dead on his feet. Wiped out from the climb, he started wondering if they had already made it to the next dungeon. Watching the scene play out, he screamed his lungs out at Vaughn, to stop trying to block the incoming disaster. But way too late, he watched Vaughn totally ambush Aganzo, sending him crashing to the floor in pain. Panicking, he couldn't believe he was a split second too late to stop the hit. The captain told Aganzo not to run, claiming the agony was just muscle cramps. Creeping up the stairs, the young adventurer scoped out the drama, unfolding from a distance. Hiding in the shadows, he watched and wondered if things were still chill over there. Ready to move, he swore to keep a laser focus on Von Walshadid, until he uncovered the real truth. Then it clicked, the captain wasn't acting sketch, or corrupted at all. Actually, the dude wasn't trying to hurt a single soul, or brainwash the Night Order. From his spot, he spied on the captain vibing with the dungeon's adventurer crew. Plot twist, the captain looked totally normal, with zero signs of being tainted. Aganzo pointed out they gotta scout the layout to hunt down the boss of this joint. So he and the captain split up to map out the tower floor. Meanwhile, Saria was chatting with the fighter about that total weirdo they bumped into earlier. Zooming in on the action, he caught a super sus vibe from the captain. Watching him wave bye to the fighter, he just knew his gut feeling was totally spot on. Even though the dialogue was a straight-up copy from the game, the whole thing felt insanely sketchy. He basically asked himself if the captain wasn't the tainted one, then who the heck was, thinking it over. He remembered the tavern might just be a missing Easter egg from the game. Out of nowhere, a mob of stone freaks ambushed the squad, catching everyone in the hall off guard. The beasts charged in dead set on smashing the captain, and the adventurers close by. Super pissed at the welcome wagon, Von Walshadid roared for the boss of this dump to show their face right now. Watching the squad throw down, the kid wondered who this mystery boss the captain mentioned actually was. Flashing back to the card he snagged, he got terrified that Vaughn might just turn into a card too if he got wiped out. It hit him that the real corrupted mastermind was straight up the dungeon's boss monster itself. With this massive realization, everything just started making a whole lot of sense. Meanwhile, the captain was low-key wondering where Hearts and that runaway kid disappeared to. Right in the middle of the chaos, he knew he absolutely had to find an opening to crash the fight. Prowling the zone, he scrambled for a way to back up the squad in this heavy brawl. Suddenly, one of the enemy goons geared up to draw his blade and strike. GSD completely wrecked the mobs with lightning-fast combos. Stomping right over the monster guts, they pushed deeper into the tower's corridor. Sharon flexed that she was always blown away. He just told her to drop the jokes. Seeing they pushed this deep, the white-haired girl figured they gotta be getting super close now. Muttering a sorry, GSD, aka the bald dude, geared up to blast the kid hiding out nearby. With a brutal slash, he launched an absolutely savage strike right at the adventurer. Totally shook by the sudden hit, the woman yelled, asking what the heck he was doing, parrying the massive blow. The kid screamed that the old guy mistook him for a monster. Aganzo noticed he totally lost control of the crazy throbbing in his arm gripping the sword. Orlando was freaking out, wondering if he was legit a second away from getting dusted. Right then, Sharon grilled him on why he was tailing the squad. He instantly begged for a favor in return, then spilled that he actually knew them both, GSD and Sharon, the literal dungeon characters. Knowing they'd jump into the final battle, he begged to tag along. Sharon shut him down hard, saying there was literally zero reason for that. He instantly picked up on the sketchy vibes. Knowing they completely distrusted him, he had to figure out how to win them over. To keep the run going, shading his eyes, he dropped a massive truth bomb. They desperately needed his help to clear this dungeon. He exposed the mysterious guy as Duncan, the absolute sword grandmaster of this raid. Totally shook by this massive flex, Sharon was left speechless that he actually knew the secret identity of the bald dude. Flashing a cocky smirk, he spun toward the squad, asking what they thought. Looking completely lost, they stammered that absolutely no one was ever supposed to know the true identity of this legendary swordsman. Aganzo backed up that the legend was real, but totally shut down the name. Sweating bullets, our boy was losing his mind, wondering why on earth Aganzo had zero clue about the swordsman's actual name. Searching through his massive game lore knowledge, it hit him the latest patch. Didn't wipe the server, it totally remixed it. Right on cue. The Stone Knights aggressively resurrected, gearing up for round 2. The swordsman calmly noticed the uninvited guests crashing their party, realizing they had to brace for an all-out brawl. Locking in, our MC frantically dug through the original game's lore to decode these crazy patch notes. Then a vaguely familiar NPC name clicked in his brain and the whole puzzle made sense. The man's real terrifying title was actually the grandson of the Tower of Despair, an absolute unit of a character. Sharon frantically yelled that the clock was ticking, and they had to keep speedrunning the Sky Tower. Channeling a massive frost blast, she absolutely nuked the floor beneath them, aggressively splitting the squad from the adventurer. The blast violently shattered the stone monsters into millions of icy shards, free-falling through the air. Sharon screamed GSD's name, completely traumatized by the sudden chaos. The elite swordsman whipped around and called out to the kid left in the dust. From across the gap, he demanded to know exactly who this random boy was that somehow cracked his top-secret identity. Mind blown by the answer, our guy realized he hit the jackpot, even if it started as a massive gamble. Suddenly, GSD snapped his neck around, locking onto Orlando with deadly focus. Squaring up with the swordsman, the bald legend demanded, "Yo, Blondie, who even are you?" Brushing it off, he just dropped his name. "I'm Orlando, bro. Straight out of Barranquilla." Smirking like he owned the place, he casually tossed in that they could just call him Orlanduco, if they wanted to keep things chill. Right on cue, Sharon awkwardly slid into the duo's airspace to hijack the conversation. Brushing right past her with a slight shoulder check, he muttered that she was way more aggressive than he ever gave her credit for. Cutting to the chase, GSD demanded to know what he actually wanted. Our main character boldly demanded to be his apprentice. Mulling it over, the bald dude shrugged, agreed, and told them to move out. Seeing the epic deal go down, she watched Orlando start strutting away. Sharon immediately yelled after him. He slowly turned around, shooting her a deadpan. "What do you want?" Invading his personal space and totally swooning over his gorgeous eyes, she shot her shot, inviting him for tea at the guild. "Oh yeah, chat." She was definitely thirsting hard for real, for real. Physically shoving her away, he shut her down fast, warning her he had zero intentions of leaking any spoilers about the tower. She desperately tried to hustle a deal anyway, but he served her a stone-cold rejection. She threw a massive fit, whining that there was no need for all the gatekeeping. But Orlanduco ain't no simp, so he ghosted her, whining completely. Instead, he casually asked if she happened to have a colorless cube on her. She flashed the cube, asking if this was the loot he was looking for. Without missing a beat, Orlando savagely snatched the item right out of her hands, making her screech, like full-on screaming at him to hand it back right that second. Finally, hitting their destination, GSD loudly declared they had reached the ultimate goal. Flexing his meta-knowledge, our protagonist hyped up the squad, confirming this was the final boss room. While Sharon was still throwing death threats in the background, GSD stepped up, gearing up to storm the massive hall. Out of nowhere, a rival party of adventurers spawned right in their path. While they were busy doing their cheesy intros, Palm cluelessly asked which route they should take next. Giving zero replies, the bald menace just bulldozed forward, shoving everyone out of his way. Then, out of thin air, a massive winged beast crash-landed hard, blocking the swordsman's path. Seeing the crazy spawn animation, Van was completely shook, shouting about the blinding light. Stun-locked, he could only watch as the enemy fully rendered into reality right in front of his face. The monster instantly blitzed him, sending him flying backward with insane knockback. Agonzo managed to catch him, and Van muttered that he actually thought speedrunning this floor was going to be way too easy. Dropping its boss intro, the entity proclaimed to be Sigurd, the absolute Lord of Light. Glaring down at the squad, it demanded to know who had the guts to invade its territory. Flexing its guardian status, Sigurd ordered all the trespassers to log out immediately. Standing right in front of it, Orlando was dead-ass staring at the boss's floating dialogue box from the game interface. Without a single second of hesitation, our boy just aggressively smashed the skip cutscene button. The split second the lock lifted, the fighter blindly rushed in to one-shot the boss, catching everyone completely off guard. Van declared they absolutely had to jump into the brawl. Our boy, the MC, chimed in, asking if he could lend a hand, making hearts clock him instantly. He then shot absolute daggers at Orlando, straight up calling the dude a blonde-haired menace. Boiling with rage, Hearts screamed he was going to end him right then and there, but GSD stepped in, claiming Orlando was his shiny new favorite apprentice, his precious little golden boy. He shrugged, saying his hands were tied if Hearts refused to talk it out. The vice captain just kept burning a hole through his skull, until his bro yelled at him to just take the deal, warning them to save the beef for later if they actually wanted to make it out alive. A swarm of flying freaks swarmed in, and someone shrieked they were under attack. Not wasting a single second, GSD dashed forward and sliced the first ugly mug clean in half. Right on cue, Sharon unleashed a massive blast straight into the monster horde. Teaming up, the whole squad went head-to-head with the airborne beasts. Hearts parried a lethal strike, right with his blade. Whining like crazy, he muttered that he just wanted to sit back and watch, but there were just way too many creeps to slash through. Scanning the battlefield, he suddenly realized the system was completely bugging out and ignoring everyone else. Catching a brutal haymaker, one of the beasts got launched, soaring across the room like a ragdoll. Meanwhile, the brawler girl seized the opening to land a devastating combo right on the boss Sieghart. With one insane power strike, she slammed his massive body straight into the concrete. Just like that, every single guardian monster in the hall froze dead in their tracks. Spotting the weird vibe, Van asked if they powered down just because their big boss got clapped. Creeping up to the crushed body, Saria whispered, wondering if this nightmare was finally over. But nope, the fallen boss's hand started twitching all on its own. Next thing they knew, a blinding pillar of light erupted right in the middle of the hall. Rising from the dead, Sieghart roared that he would incinerate anyone who dared to stand in his way. Pissed off, Van spat. That heart seriously needed to stop being such a magnet for horrible luck. Taking in the chaos, Agonzo questioned if this bowl-cut boss was straight-up immortal. Right after, Orlando laid out the master plan they had to shatter the magic circle hidden inside the castle. Yelling for everyone to fall back, he dashed ahead, leading the squad straight toward the exit. He popped open the menu, locking in the floating castle as their next drop zone, touching down the crew geared up to raid the massive sky fortress. Inside, they spotted the glowing magic circle guarded by some seriously freaky-looking mutants. Orlando just chilled in the shadows while the rest of the gang totally wiped the floor with the mobs. Clearing all the objectives, the squad finally checked off that annoying side quest. Warping back to the main hall, he stepped up to face Sieghart for the ultimate boss fight. Now the one and only goal left was to finally body this absolute scumbag. As the raid kicked off, he watched his homies clash against the towering threat. In a flash, Sieghart lunged forward to shred one of his targets, spotting the massive opening. The brawler girl vaulted into the air to deliver a brutal knuckle sandwich. Boom, she clocked the hall's guardian right in the jaw. The impact caused the boss's power tower to violently explode in the sky. Hyped about the win, Saria thanked the whole squad for clutching up and helping clear the mission. Walking away, our boy muttered that he seriously hoped those magic circles wouldn't glitch out on them. All of a sudden, chaotic dark energy started oozing out of the crushed boss on the floor. Out of nowhere, that creepy aura swirled up and completely wrapped around his own body. Freaking out, he yelled, asking why the heck the reward card hadn't dropped yet. High above the tower, a massive, glowing magic circle sparked to life in the sky. Out of nowhere, a random bird flying by got completely zapped. Catching the wild light show, Agonzo's crew was totally speechless. Van pointed out that their path was blocked, questioning what on earth that thing was. From a safe distance, Orlando watched the party trying to figure out the crazy anomaly near the circle, sprinting up the stairs. He frantically searched for the missing loot card. Sweating bullets, he panicked, terrified that he messed up a crucial mission step. Down below, Lenny, the annoying pink-haired chick, started screeching her lungs out for her captain, demanding to know where he vanished to. Hearing the shrill yell, he whipped around, looking totally stunned and lost. Spotting the girl, he mumbled her name, still completely clueless about what was happening. He asked what the heck she was doing there, and Lenny shot back that she was hunting for a promotion. Groaning, she spun on her heels and stormed off while Van was literally being dragged away by the others. A second later, she pointed out that the big boss seemed to be lurking up above. He instantly blocked her path, screaming at her to hold up, which completely ticked her off. She shoots him a glare, demanding to know why he just blocked her, and completely derailed the squad's momentum. Knowing exactly how this plays out, he realizes he absolutely has to keep Lenny out of the crossfire. Totally baffled, she asks why he's staring at her like a total weirdo. Yanking the girl closer, he flat out tells her she needs to stay put right there with him. He practically drags her down the stairs, dropping the bombshell that the main event is about to pop off. Right through the window, a massive flying whale just casually drifts across the castle's skyline. Outside, GSD stops dead in his tracks. Feeling violent tremors rippling through the air, he warns the crew that something huge is incoming. Boom, a blazing airship suddenly rips through the clouds at breakneck speed. The whole squad freezes, totally shook and clueless about what's going down. Lenny screams her lungs out, warning everyone about the flaming warship. But he just realizes the final event is triggering, and casually explains that an NPC is about to crash land right next door. Watching the massive ship plummet, Lenny shrieks that they need to dip right now. Trying to chill her out, he smoothly tells her there's zero reason to panic. Except that blazing metal monstrosity is literally nosediving straight for their heads. Freaking out, she screams that she has to warn the captain but as he looks up, the reality hits him. The escape pod is actually going to crash land on this exact spot. Staring at the falling wreckage, Lenny's brain completely short-circuits. She just cannot process the madness unfolding. He narrows his eyes mentally, questioning why the hell this hijacked airship is locked directly onto their coordinates. And then, it finally clicks. This isn't just a random glitch. This is the true corruption of the floating castle kicking in. Without a second thought, he violently hurls an item high into the sky. Stepping up to the plate, he gears up to make sure absolutely nothing bad happens to his little strawberry cookie. He makes the split-second call. The only way out is to completely obliterate the falling airship. He perfectly remembers the original lore where an NPC was scripted to crash in this exact location. Now his ultimate mission is to keep Lenny breathing and ensure that rookie adventurer touches down in one piece. closing in by the millisecond that emergency pod is inches away from a devastating impact. Meanwhile, inside, a mysterious female silhouette silently watches the chaos unfold through the pod. Freaking out, he swears there is literally zero chance this is actually happening. The chat box just keeps spamming laugh emojis and our guy looks ready to absolutely blow a gasket. Boom. Out of nowhere, the base of the Sky Castle Tower takes a massive dead-on hit. The entire massive structure starts violently crumbling to pieces right before their eyes. Spiraling totally out of control, the colossal airship is seconds away from slamming into the tower. The ship violently scrapes down the structure, tearing everything to shreds. Refusing to back down, he screams that he is going to clutch this mission no matter what. Lenny is totally shook watching the ship get deflected. Checking her stash, she demands to know if he seriously just chucked one of those weird-ass fruits at it. Grinding against the stone walls, the airship keeps nosediving, getting absolutely shredded piece by piece. Screaming at the wreckage to stop, he yeets the fruit forward at warp speed. Bam! The fruit smacks perfectly. It instantly ricochets and violently strikes the bottom hull of the heavy ship. High above the squad hears the loud crash and starts tripping out. Agonso and Van peer over the edge, completely clueless about the chaos unfolding below. Free falling down the tower, the massive airship is wiping out literally everything in its path. The wreckage just keeps plummeting, sending both of them into full-blown panic mode. Orlando grips another fruit, tightly winding up to launch it for one final desperate play. Smashing the fruit back, he bounces it incredibly hard against the shattered tower debris. Without missing a beat, he hurls another one to keep his crazy combo going. Watching this wild scene, Lenny yells, "What is this idiot even doing now?" Swinging his heavy blade, he aggressively whacks an object straight up toward the top of the tower. Then he targets the ship's base to try and force it completely off course. But oh crap, he suddenly realizes he is totally out of fruit. Stressing out big time, the ship loses its upward momentum and starts nosediving toward the ground all over again. Freaking out, Lenny screams that the ship is going to crash since it is totally dead in the water. Out of nowhere, he literally yeets himself straight at the falling airship. He positions himself right over the opening of that cube he snagged from Sharon. Spitting out the item, he instantly crafts a mid-air stepping stone out of the falling rubble. With a sick kick, he violently launches the massive boulder straight up into the air. Then he slashes the rock with his heavy sword, boosting its speed to the absolute max. The makeshift bullet shoots straight toward the giant magic circle in the sky. Screaming his lungs out, he unleashes every single drop of energy left in his body. Popping a massive skill, he heavily channels an insane amount of pure dark energy. Completely cloaked in that heavy dark aura, he viciously charges in for the ultimate final strike on the boulder. Going all out, he unleashes an absolutely devastating blast of sheer energy. He smashes into the rock with insane force, launching it straight into the sky. The rock slams directly into the airship, triggering an instant massive explosion. The intense shockwave violently blasts him backward, leaving him completely stunned. Down on the ground, Van screams for everyone to hit the deck and take cover immediately. The airship gets instantly blown into a million pieces. As fiery debris severely rains down from the sky, the squad is just left totally stunned, wondering what on earth just happened. With the absolute chaos finally over, the sweet loot card pops up on his screen. Smirking, he totally hypes himself up for actually clutching the super rare secret castle event. But wait. He is literally still free-falling off the massive tower, with absolutely zero survival plan. Grasping at thin air, he helplessly watches his heavy sword plummet way out of his reach. Out of nowhere, a hand wildly snatches his wrist, completely saving him from a brutal game-over drop. Totally shook by the incredibly clutch save, he looks up to see his rescuer. Gripping his hand incredibly tight, Strawberry Cookie hits him with a "We are officially even now." They have finally settled the score after all that crazy past drama. Gripping his totally shattered blade, he bitterly groans about the absolutely insane recoil from his own massive blast. Grumbling to himself, it suddenly hits him that his inventory is basically empty, and he is literally flat broke with 0 gold left. But hey, despite the whole struggle bus, he actually leveled up and unlocked a totally sick new skill. But there is a huge catch to actually spam these crazy new powers. He needs those special cube shards. Checking his skill tree, he realizes he is going to have to aggressively farm a ton of consumables from now on. Pausing for a quick sec to think, he locks in his next drop spot. Left with 0 other options, he decides to just pull up to the Mage Guild. Flashback to exactly 24 hours ago, things at the tower entrance were hitting a whole lot different. He was heavily beefing with Lenny, who was totally going off on him about the entire messy situation. She aggressively calls him out, claiming he only stopped the ship to save his own skin, definitely not hers. Furious, she loudly demands he pays up for the damages immediately. Bro really just gets his life saved and immediately threatens her. He swears he's gonna snitch to her guild master. but she just flashes this cocky smirk staring him down. Absolutely silent. Out of nowhere. Bam! She flicks him super hard right between the eyes and starts yelling. She demands he buy her food as payback. Poking fun at the whole mess, Van teases him asking if he's about to go on a little double date with Hearts now. He jokes that the Duke is really living his best life. As they walk away, Van drops the formalities telling him to chill, but Hearts isn't having it, clapping back with a death threat about ripping his head off. Brushing it off, Van calls out his name one last time, promising that their paths are definitely going to cross again. Watching them vanish into the distance, our MC realizes something crucial. He needs to dodge Van like the plague. Boom, the bald dude literally spawns right in his face. Our guy screams out of his lungs while GSD casually praises him for a job well done. Speaking up, he thanks the MC for actually pulling off his crazy special request. The swordsman then mentions he's got to wrap things up with Sharan real quick. In return, she promises to keep her lips sealed about the tower. With business handled, GSD turns around and dips. Stepping closer, Sharan admits she's completely over the whole drama anyway. But then she hits our MC with a heavy question. Was he the one who steered that falling airship? She points out he could have easily blown the whole thing to pieces or just saved himself. Instead, he forced the ship upwards, almost like he absolutely needed to meet the person trapped inside. Staring blankly at the tower, our guy stays totally silent. Not a single word. Shrugging it off, she tells him to keep his secrets, but she drops an open invite. Swing by the Mages Guild if he ever wants to make a deal. What a chaotic old lady. When he finally pulls up to the guild, his jaw drops at the massive main hall. He honestly wasn't expecting such a massive flex. He thought it'd be some tiny rundown shop. Now it's time to talk business with Sharan. He desperately needs info from her. But since he can't leak anything about the corruption, he's totally stumped on what to trade. Bro is broke. 0 gold, 0 weapons. He has to get creative. Inside, she welcomes him, teasing that he showed up way faster than she thought. Swirling a cup in her hand, she asks if he's finally ready to spill the tea. She tries to introduce Iris, but our guy casually drops that he already knows her. Sharan is shook. How the heck does he know the guild's top fortune teller? Wait. He starts panicking internally. How did she know his name? He completely freezes up, staring at the girl like she's an alien. Stepping up, he gets ready to grill this so-called seer. Closing the gap, he locks eyes with her, dead serious. But she just casually says his name out loud, introducing herself as Iris, the songstress of fate. He doesn't hold back. He demands to know if she somehow peeked into his future, adding that she probably already knows exactly why he's here. The psychic just stares straight into his soul. Complete silence. Breaking the tension, she softly notes that he really seems like the type of guy who overthinks absolutely everything. Turning her back to him, Iris starts plucking her instrument. Her only answer, everything happening right now was just written in the stars. Hearing that cliché line, he clenches his fist, muttering her exact words under his breath. Then it hits him. He low-key celebrates, realizing that's literally just an NPC voice line from the game. Relieved, he smiles, realizing he was stressing over nothing. But then Sharan cuts in, demanding to know why he blurted out Iris's name like that. She backs him into a corner, listing out all his suspicious moves and asking how he knew about her future sight. She glares at him. Who are you really? Oh crap. He realizes he yapped way too much. He completely blew his cover. His brain goes into overdrive. And he finally makes a wild choice. The two of them just stand there in the massive hall, locked in a dead heavy silence. Taking a breath, he declares it's time to drop the mask. Ready to lay it all out, he gears up to tell Sharan the absolute truth. Looking her dead in the eye, he claims that he is the one who can see the future. And that's exactly what he's here to sell. Fast forward a few days, and the Mages Guild is literally on fire with panic. Inside, a random mage is sprinting for her life down the hallways, rushing past rows of massive framed portraits on the walls. She keeps up the frantic dash, zooming past endless shelves packed with ancient, dusty books. Finally, she reaches these massive double doors at the dead end, busting them wide open. She crashes into the room, screaming for the guildmaster. Collapsing on the cold floor, she gasps out to Sharan that an absolute disaster just hit them. She practically screams that the rookie mage Lorien just vanished into thin air. Sharan's jaw drops. Are you absolutely positive she's gone? She demands. The girl nods frantically, shoving her magic stone forward as proof. The thing is completely dead, not a single spark left. Without missing a beat, the headmaster locks down the guild and orders a massive sweep of the area. Meanwhile, lurking right behind the door, our boy is totally eavesdropping on the chaos. He strolls out of the shadows, casually dropping a "yeah, saw that coming" miles away. This absolute menace claims he just peeped into the future. He smirks, telling them they'll find her chilling by the window. Sharan glares daggers at Orlando, closing the gap between them. Gripping the dead magic stone, she gives him major side-eye. "Did you orchestrate this?" she snaps. But her mind flashes back to that crazy airship disaster. This vibe feels totally different. Could this guy actually be spitting facts about the future? Orlando just flashes a cocky grin. He knows this is the ultimate flex to show off what he is really packing. Sensing she ain't buying it yet, he figures he's got to step up his game. He tosses a casual peace out, dropping one last tip: go find Lorien fast. Sharan looks totally lost. Who the heck is Lorien? As the girl's face flashes on screen, Orlando taps a wanted poster right next to them. That's her, he confirms, leaving Sharan absolutely stunned. Then, he drops a cryptic warning about her needing his delivery services ASAP. Cut to a completely different scene where a hyped squad of adventurers is swarming the city square. Strolling down the block, our guy is hyping himself up, betting Sharan is already hooked. Let's be real, he knows other players will end up hard carrying most of these quests anyway. Mentally calculating his loot, he debates demanding a massive stack of gold and potions. He smirks. Hey, technically he didn't lie. Smack. Someone totally obliterates the back of his head, whirling around. He realizes he was yapping to himself out loud and got caught in 4K. Switching to IRL mode, the streamer squints at his monitor and instantly spots a familiar username. Bumping into Orlando mid-street, this random dude yells, "Yo, are you the Tower Knight?" Orlando immediately dips, but the guy totally yanks his collar, exposing his identity on the spot. Our MC full-on sprints for his life while this fanboy aggressively chases him down, begging to carry him through, leveling up. Totally baffled by why he is running away, the fanboy slams the brakes, looking super confused. He screams Orlando's name at the top of his lungs, literally jump-scaring the poor guy. Watching this absolute mess unfold, the streamer completely loses it, dying of laughter. Super annoyed, Orlando snaps, "Bro, what is your problem?" The kid quickly backpedals to explain. Then he drops the million-dollar question. "How do you even know my name?" The guy blinks, mind blown. "Wait, is your gamer tag literally your real name?" Checking his stats, Orlando realizes his real name is basically doxed to the whole server. He cracks a smile, flashing back to when he introduced himself to GS as Orlando. Looking at this train wreck, it finally clicks. His butterfly effect is getting real heavy. Vibing with his energy, the fanboy snaps his fingers, making a glowing scroll pop up. He unrolls it, officially trying to recruit Orlando into his guild, flexing a bunch of crazy loot. He pitches hard, but Orlando instantly shuts him down. Hard pass. Then the guy drops a bomb. "I know everything." Orlando instantly leans in, hooked. The voice clicks. Orlando realizes exactly who he is dealing with. But out of nowhere, Ophelia bursts into the scene, raging that she is going to pull up and get her revenge. Peeking from his hiding spot, he spots her, the lone survivor from that blazing airship crash. Agonzo tries to grab her, but she violently shakes him off, spotting Vaughn and Agonzo teaming up. Orlando knows it's go time. The behemoth arc just dropped. The one hard carrying this quest is an archer named Muse, staying totally stealthy. He ghosts the area while the fanboy is still searching for him. Cut to Ophelia dumping lore on Vaughn, the massive temple on top of Behemoth. That's her turf. She breaks down, explaining how everyone living there wasn't just a community, they were family. But Lotus brainwashed them all, forcing them into a literal bloodbath where they slaughtered each other, voice cracking with pure rage. She screams that there is zero chance she's just gonna sit around doing nothing. Watching the drama unfold, Orlando takes a deep breath. He's gotta stay ice cold to survive this mess. The Behemoth, yeah, it's a massive sky-surfing whale, with an entire religious cult built on its back. When the raid went down, Ophelia had to dive straight to the surface just to beg for backup. Get this, there are 12 apostles pulling the strings here. Basically the ultimate endgame bosses of this universe. Orlando mutters that playing Muse is an absolute nightmare for noobs. Stepping up to her, Agonzo casually asks if she's rolling as an explorer. He immediately flags that they are marching towards the completely wrong end of the secret harbor. Orlando's jaw drops. She literally just skip-buttoned the entire lore dump dialogue. As the squad rolls out, Vaughn and Agonzo look perfectly normal, no mind control. At least for now. The cutscene wraps up, but a massive crash shatters the silence. Orlando freezes, totally glitching out, because the script was supposed to end right there. Out of nowhere, Lenny comes charging in, screaming that she's tagging along for the raid too. Wrapping up their chat with Ophelia, the squad rolls up to the temple's massive outer wall, with Van and Agonzo tagging along. Our MC is mentally locking in for the crazy mission ahead. Out of nowhere, Van starts beefing with Lenny. She goes off screaming that he has zero business being there, straight up shooting down his request to join the squad. Van insists this raid is way too hardcore for her. Seconds later, Elvis Hearts crashes the scene and physically apologizing for not stepping in sooner to pull the plug on her stunt. Hearts barks at her to chill out, warning her that they aren't just fighting some low-level mobs this time around. Watching this whole drama unfold, Orlando just sighs heavy. Does this mean we're all stuck crashing this party together? He asks. He drops a harsh truth: bringing Lenny along is going to skyrocket the danger level. But while Lenny is busy hyping herself up, the vice captain keeps a tight grip on her, looking completely dead inside. Orlando clenches his fist and gives the order they roll out at sunrise. Cut to the night sky where the absolute unit known as Behemoth is casually floating right over the city. To actually reach that raid boss, the gang hops onto a massive airship docked down at the city port. Meanwhile, back at the guild, Dorian hits up Sharon with a quick "what's good" and asks what she needs right now. Pointing right at Orlando's back, he asks who the random homeless-looking dude is. Sharon completely deadpans that his name is Orlando, and he is actually a VIP guest crashing with them right now. She immediately asks Dorian if his ride is prepped for takeoff, and he guarantees it is locked and loaded. Sharon quickly hits him with a plot twist: the ship isn't even for her. Right then, someone starts absolutely hammering on the door. Orlando throws it open, demanding to know what is going down. Sharon drops the bomb that they have got a massive situation. Orlando starts explaining that something deeply messed up is about to go down on the Behemoth, begging for backup to board that giant beast, promising to spill all the lore once they hit the warehouse. Our MC casually picks up some random artifact, vibing with how cool it looks, while Dorian politely offers up some tea. Boom! A dagger violently shatters into a million pieces across the room, jump scared by the noise. The two whip their heads toward the crash. Looking guilty as hell, Orlando stammers, claiming he barely even tapped the golden artifact. Absolutely raging Dorian perfectly clocks Orlando right in the jaw, screaming about how ridiculously expensive that gear was. But Orlando just brushes it off like it was trash anyway. But our MC is not having it, shouting that Sharon is the one footing the bill for all the busted loot. Just then, the room's door slowly creeps open, leaving a tiny crack. Stepping onto the chaotic scene, a knight named Roboto peeks in, asking if Dorian is hanging around. Catching the pure madness in the room, Dorian looks at Sharon and asks if just maybe Orlando has officially lost his mind. Cut to the port where two massive airships are anchored, waiting to load up for the hype expedition. Rolling up to the docks, Orlando is shook by the massive crowd of passengers and barks at them to gear up ASAP. Agonzo starts bringing up the Mage Guild, but our MC quickly brushes it off, claiming he is literally just a guest. Agonzo drops a heavy hint about Sharon's high expectations, which leaves Orlando sweating bullets over the pressure. Scanning the crowd, Orlando spots Van and Leanie making their way down the ramp toward the ship. As they cross paths, they instantly recognize our boy, who confirms he is officially locked in for the guild's expedition. Van turns to him, asking if they are teaming up. Orlando smoothly counters by asking to borrow a squad member as a personal bodyguard. Captain Van immediately offers up Lenny for the job, and our MC snaps up the offer without missing a beat, flashing a totally smug smirk. Inside, Orlando is celebrating a massive win, realizing he can now keep a close eye on Leanie's every move. She glares at him, demanding to know what sneaky stuff he is plotting before screaming at him to get his butt on the ship. Right on cue, Muse pulls up to the crew as the captain proudly announces they finally made it happen. Massive white sails unfurl across the deck, prepping for a lightning-fast takeoff. With a crazy burst of momentum, the entire airship blasts off the ground, violently ripping away from the port's waters. Slapping on his trusty goggles, Dorian grabs the steering wheel and hypes up the crew, screaming that they are hitting max speed. The ship absolutely tears through the sky toward their final boss, the gigantic Behemoth. Without warning, the vessel nosedives straight into a massive, pitch-black vortex tearing through the clouds. The turbulence is insane, tossing Muse off balance. She nearly wipes out, practically crying for them to hit the brakes. Orlando catches her tight, realizing she is completely frozen up like a glitched-out NPC. Suddenly it clicks for him: this entire flight sequence is literally just an in-game loading screen for the players. A blinding flash of light pierces the end of the tunnel, signaling the drop zone. Bursting out of the vortex, the ship dangerously skims right past one of Behemoth's absolutely monstrous eyes. Agonzo and the captain are left totally speechless, staring in sheer terror at the absolute scale of this beast. Lenny's brain just stops working, entirely shell-shocked by the view outside the window. And finally, the terrifying continent-sized body of the Behemoth is fully revealed. Carrying a whole literal island on his back, they finally touch down, only to find the ground totally wrecked, scarred by a massive turf war. Scouting from a distance, Orion warns he can't just sit on the sidelines. Looking at the messed-up landscape, he says they gotta signal him to fall back. It's dead obvious a brutal showdown just popped off in this wasteland. Agonzo mutters that the air itself feels suffocatingly heavy. Van chimes in, saying it's way worse than that, catching sight of Muse rolling up. Our boy quickly ducks out of sight so she doesn't spot him. The captain starts dropping orders but gets cut off by some dude, sprawled on the dirt begging for a lifeline. Recognizing that creepy three-eyed mask, he asks if they're survivors from the GBL order. Whispering some psycho stuff about needing to kill the guy's mask literally starts cracking right in front of his face. Zero hesitation, Van dashes in and executes the guy, smashing his mask to absolute pieces. Scanning the area, he spots a bunch of people being puppeted by nasty tentacles, all of them pleading to be put out of their misery. Suddenly, the tentacles squeeze tight as a sinister voice echoes out, "Anyone who goes against Lotus will catch an instant death sentence." The mind-controlled freaks let out a blood-curdling screech and rush the squad. With one blinding sword slash, Captain Van drops an attacker flat. He coldly states that dying is way better than being a meat puppet. Stepping back from the chaos, RMC yells for Lenny, telling her to stick close. She panics, telling him to watch his back since he's completely empty-handed, but he just smirks, pointing at a random dagger on the ground. He flexes that he copped a brand new weapon earlier today. Totally lost. She asks what kind of weird-ass blade he just picked up. As a monster suddenly lunges, she screams her lungs out that he's literally just holding a sword hilt. Sensing the killer intent, he spins around to face the ambush. Moving at lightning speed, Orlando uses that exact hilt to strike the beast. That's rushing straight for Lenny. Taking the brutal hit head-on, the monster literally starts crumbling to dust right in front of them. With one final flex, he completely obliterates the creature, making it vanish into thin air. Threat neutralized. He takes a deep breath, standing tall, right next to Lenny. Flashing her a warm smile, he asks if she's holding up okay after that crazy jump scare. She just stares at him in stunned silence, mind blown by what she just witnessed. "Oh yeah, guys, our boy absolutely let it cook, yes. Yes." Pushing forward down the trail, the crew stumbles upon ancient, time-crumbled ruins. Meanwhile, off in another zone, Muse channels a special skill to rip open a portal, porting right back to the squad. Van reports that the whole situation is locked down. Agonzo turns to the adventurer, pointing out that he probably already caught on. He breaks it down: someone's been hardcore stalking them ever since they cleared the temple's outer wall. From a distance, a sketchy hooded figure has been tracking their every single move. Striding ahead, Agonzo pitches a plan. They need to flip the script and jump whoever's tailing them. The captain points out a heavy structure buried deep in the jungle ahead. Mega curious, Lenny asks if those mind-controlled zombies could actually sling magic like that too. Gripping a glowing crystal, he replies that these are just the leftovers from throwing down with her. Spilling the lore, he reveals that Isadora actually tried to wipe the floor with the squad before Lotus even could, but she got totally caught off guard and walked right into their trap. Then Orlando drops that 0 lives were lost and she ended up joining their side. He wraps up saying the other crew is probably already rushing the next dungeon, realizing how insanely fast things are moving. The intense pressure hits him and his nose randomly starts bleeding, weirded out by him zoning out. Lenny waves a hand, asking if he's even listening to a word she's saying. Completely trapped in his own head, he totally blanks on her. Right then and there, he realizes that if the timeline plays out as it should, Lenny is destined to die here super soon. A brutal vision flashes in his mind of her getting lethally wounded in battle, so he forces himself to push forward, knowing he can't, and absolutely shouldn't mess with what's coming. To him, her dark fate was locked in stone a long time ago. Calling out her name, he locks eyes with her pure anxiety written all over his face. He tells her to hold up, warning her that she could easily get jumped. Out here again. She brushes it off, saying she just let her guard down for a sec, but he claps back that that's exactly how you get dropped. Super awkwardly, she asks him if, by any crazy chance, he happens to have a girlfriend right now. Utterly blindsided by the question, he literally freezes, brain buffering. He can't even process the vibe. Shell-shocked that she dropped that out of nowhere. But right before he can even stutter an answer, the ground violently splinters and a freakish creature blitzes them from the shadows. Caught slacking, Lenny takes a massive dead-on hit and gets brutally launched through the air. Orlando also eats a devastating heavy-handed punch straight from the mystery beast, screaming out his name. Lenny freaks out, watching thick roots pin Orlando straight to the dirt. Trapped by this psycho-dendroid monster, he's totally shook that there's still an enemy lurking this close. He tries to pop a skill, roaring at the monster to step up and fight him face to face. And right at that exact second, another massive beast creeps up, completely dead silent right behind him, snatching Orlando's face in a brutal grip. The monster locks him down in a vice grip, completely paralyzing him on the spot. Spotting the insane danger, Lenny leaps into action, hacking away at the tangled roots with her blade. With one sick, heavy strike, she slashes through the branches, ripping him free from the twisted tree freak. Groaning at the chaos, she wonders, what the heck is even going on in this cursed jungle? He starts dumping lore about the monster, but she literally tells him to shut his trap. Our boy teases that she got caught lacking, but she flexes, claiming she was just way too confident. Letting out blood-curdling screeches, the two freaks charge at the duo for a final showdown. Locking eyes, our main characters hype themselves up for the ultimate tag team beatdown. Against the creeps. Flexing his weapon, Orlando closes the gap and cleanly slices right through the wooden beast's arm. At the exact same time, Lenny delivers an absolutely devastating smash to the other freak with her giant broadsword. Sending chunks flying through the air, the creature's arm gets completely ripped off from her heavy hit, flashing hyped-up smirks. The duo keeps throwing hands, absolutely wiping the floor with the rest of the mob. After the insane brawl, they are left panting heavily in the middle of the wrecked ruins, finally catching a break. But suddenly Lenny stumbles hard and hits the dirt, throwing Orlando into full panic mode. He rushes over in a heartbeat, asking if she can stand up, but she looks completely drained. Reaching her hand out, she admits she totally busted her ankle and asks for a pull-up. Staring down at her, he casually circles back to their earlier chat, dropping the bomb that he has already taken, adding that she actually knows his girl. Lenny's face instantly drops dead serious. Grabbing her hand to pull her up, he drops the tea that he was planning to take her out this coming weekend. Then he brings up some ancient promise they made, absolutely flustering her beyond belief, even without a clue on where to crash. He claims he literally could not care less about what the haters think. Out of absolutely nowhere, she delivers a brutal roundhouse kick straight to Orlando's gut. Gasping for air, he demands to know why she just rocked him, and she screams that he totally had it coming. Sprinting through the zone side by side, their vibe is way tighter than before. Cutting to a massive echoing hall, the duo dives deep into exploring the guts of an ancient temple. Dashing down a dark corridor, they carve their way forward, blurring past creepy ancient murals. They absolutely wrecked a bunch of monsters along the way. Lenny flattened one beast straight into the floor, while Orlando was busy sweeping up the trash in the background. She questioned if he was actually legit about this sketchy route, and he doubled down hard. According to his big brain, their endgame was the Forbidden Sanctuary, which was basically the vault for the insane GBL Order's superweapon. Out of nowhere, she snapped at him to look ahead, locking his eyes onto something wild in the dead center of the room. He instantly picked up on the leftover vibes of a muse's skill. Lenny then pointed out some glowing loot chilling nearby, wondering what kind of crazy drop it was. Scooping it up, he got totally hyped, realizing it was a super rare piece of abandoned gear. Looking confused, she asked about the heavy chains, and he dropped the info that it was completely locked up. He broke it down, explaining that top-tier drops always come locked behind magic seals, exactly like this bad boy. He flexed that all it took was a simple unseal. But Lenny was quick to hit him with a reality check, warning that only actual mages could pull that off. Not backing down, he declared he would just hit up Sharon for a favor, snatching the sick loot right off the ground. Suddenly, a whole mountain of random gear started popping up all over the massive hall. Completely mind-blown, he questioned why there was so much high-tier loot just rotting away. It clicked that the Muse player had literally trashed all these items because she was already way too overpowered, busting out laughing at the insane luck. He made the ultimate gamer move, deciding he would happily adopt all this dumped top-tier loot. Jumping to the next scene, this squad just absolutely folded the sanctuary boss. High Priest Alsor was left completely flattened on the cold floor. Alsor gasped out, demanding to know why Isadora totally threw away their only survival ticket. Van clapped back, pointing out that she could literally tank it by transforming. But she stubbornly refused to pull that trigger. She fired back, calling him out for always playing it way too safe and boring. Rolling up to the spot, our guy quickly realized they had just crashed the exact scene of the High Priest's brutal defeat. He told Lenny to hold up a sec, sensing they were caught in the middle of some heavy, high-stakes drama. With his literal dying breath, Alsor roasted him as a total fool before finally biting the dust, announcing it was time to dip. Isadora and her squad speedran their way out of the zone. Our main character quickly clocked that nothing was actually corrupted yet, meaning one final crazy event was still locked and loaded. At that exact horrible second, Lenny totally tripped and face-planted right in front of the other squad. Super salty about the wipeout, she snapped, asking if he was trying to play some sick joke on her. But chilling right next to her in the dirt, an ancient book caught his eye, radiating some major main quest energy. Jolting up in shock, he instantly recognized this bad boy as the legendary Book of Genesis, an absolute must-have ultra-key item. The Book of Genesis literally spoiled the endgame fate of everyone in Arid. Glaring at the dusty pages, he let out a furious scream, while Lenny just stared at him like he had completely lost his mind. Trying to reel him back in, she asked what on earth he was pulling, totally shook by his sudden unhinged freakout. Way off in the distance, Van was busy stressing to Isadora just how crucial this item was for their whole mission. Suddenly, he froze. He whipped around dead set on the idea that he had just heard a whisper nearby. His squad just kept marching down the corridor, totally ditching him at the battle zone. Even with a gonzo shouting his name, Van kept his eyes glued behind him, super paranoid that someone was lurking in the shadows. Our main character slapped a hand over Strawberry Cookie's mouth to keep the crew from blowing their cover. He breathed a massive sigh of relief, seeing Van totally miss the book, meaning the event just glitched out. Meanwhile, Lenny was low-key panicking, freaking out that the storyline might be completely corrupted this close up. He locked eyes with her, cranking the tension up to 11. Leaning in closer, he left her completely speechless, totally caught off guard by his vibe, pressing a finger to his lips. He whispered for her to just freeze for a second. Then he leaned right into her personal space, literally looking like he was about to kiss her on the spot. But instead of that spicy moment, he snatched the book and started scribbling like crazy to fix the canon, begging her to stay quiet. He warned her he really needed to lock in and write. Hyped up, he flexed the fully finished Chapter 1 of the Genesis book right then and there. He started bragging about his insane memory, while Lenny was literally gearing up to backstab Van. Sensing weird vibes, the captain abruptly spun in their direction, looking completely clueless. But then he stopped in his tracks, finally noticing a random book dumped right there on the floor. From a safe distance, Orlando did a mini victory dance for successfully dropping the loot for the squad. Van picked up the page and started skimming the lore about the gods. Frowning in total confusion, he clearly did not recognize a single word of this storyline. After soaking it in, he just turned around and strolled off like it was no big deal. But then, out of nowhere, he literally screamed, yelling that he had never heard lore like that in his entire life, seeing it ended on a cliffhanger. He grabbed the mysterious book to take with him. Watching the whole thing go down, Lenny caught the bizarre look on his face and heard his wild shouting fading into the distance. She muttered that he had been salty before, but this was next-level rage. Having never seen him crash out like that, she demanded to know what on earth Orlando had shown him. Totally baffled by the dramatic reaction, our boy wondered if the captain was always this much of a hothead at this part. He admitted he was not sure about the facial expressions, but the dialogue was 100% exact. But when he realized the classic text prompt had not popped up, Lenny instantly knew the glitching was not over yet, realizing that she got this creeping feeling she would be in serious danger if she kept trailing this adventure party. Turning to the redhead, Orlando blurted out that they needed to make a move right away. Suddenly, the ground started quaking like crazy, and a brand new figure spawned into the hall. Totally out of the loop, Agonzo asked Isadora what was up with this massive earthquake that just kicked off. Letting out an earth-shattering roar, the massive jaws of a monster proved to be the source of the shaking. While everything was violently rumbling, someone shrieked that the behemoth was in absolute agony right now. Rattled by the chaotic scene, our protagonist suddenly clicked. This was the mind control of the big bad Lotus. He realized that the brainwashing was about to hit the giant at max power at any second. Deep within the beast, a gigantic eye snapped open, unleashing this insanely heavy mental pressure. A horrifying vision violently hit Orlando, showing a third eye literally tearing open on his own forehead. He screamed out a warning. The creature's twisted brainwashing was already grabbing hold of them, but just as fast the massive eyelid started sliding shut, cutting off the crazy psychic assault. Slumped on the floor, he realized the attack had paused and they desperately needed a game plan right now. Glancing back, he asked if Lenny had felt that heavy vibe too, and strongly suggested they dip out immediately. Even though Lenny was super confused, he doubled down, insisting he just figured out something massive and needed to report it instantly. He snatched his comms gear, locking in to beam a message straight back to the guild. Somewhere else entirely, Sharan spotted the device, blinking with a fresh signal on her desk. Catching the confirmation ping, Orlando cheered that she finally got the SOS for backup. The scene smashed cut to the forest where a voice asked what exactly he had uncovered. He just flat out said he had found the final drop zone of the monster known as Lotus. Outside, Lenny was playing lookout while they kept chatting on the inside, eavesdropping on the whole thing. She visibly jumped when she heard the phrase, Middle Ocean Drop. Back inside, Sharon broke it down, explaining that Lotus was actually an aquatic beast from day one, and right now it was totally running on fumes. Scanning the ancient pages it clicked, Lotus was literally hijacking this massive beast and steering it straight into the ocean. Clutching his skull, he swore he already saw the whole endgame play out flawlessly in his head. He dropped a massive bomb the monster was going to bounce back to max power, and literally wipe the entire world of Arid off the map. The absolute doomsday drop hit the room so hard a glass slipped off the table and smashed into a million pieces. Sharon desperately asked if this dark timeline was locked in stone, and he just nodded. Zero chance of dodging it. Grabbing his collar, she snapped that there had to be some glitch, some way to take this boss down. Ice cold, he slowly stepped closer while she just stared, totally lost. Holding his hand out, Orlando deadpanned that he just needed 100,000 gold coins. Boom, the heavy door slammed wide open, completely cutting off their intense vibe. Lenny crashed the room, aggressively rushing him to dip right now, but he just brushed it off, saying they had a mandatory detour to make first. Cut to them chilling at the local market, with Lenny literally double-fisting ice cream cones. Orlando casually dropped that they were strolling through the legendary Hendon Meyer marketplace, famous for dropping some seriously insane loot. She freaked out, yelling if they honestly had time for a shopping spree right now. But he didn't even flinch, finally leaking his actual master plan. He admitted he was only here to bag a super specific item, to completely tank Lotus's mind control. When she pointed out the random ice cream, he just shrugged and said it slaps. Pulling up to a corner pop-up shop, the super bubbly local vendor instantly hyped them up, flexing her entire inventory. Kana bragged that she stocked literally every single thing a top-tier adventurer could ever want. He silently slid her a crumpled wish list, and told her to hunt down every last thing on it. Squinting at the paper, she aggressively fact-checked his totally unhinged loot requests. Giving them a quick heads up, she warned the prep would take hours, and told them to bounce until the sun went down. While Lenny aggressively whined about the delay, he just stated facts. They had zero choice but to go AFK and wait it out. Flashing a smirk, he confirmed they were killing time in the city till dark. Dragging a grumpy Lenny along, he promised to make good on treating her to a massive food run. But plotting in the background, Kana peeked at the bottom of his list and spotted a secret memo stall for as much time as humanly possible. Vibing through the crowded streets, they paused to watch a totally chaotic local screaming about fresh fish. He enthusiastically pointed off to the side, trying to show her something crazy, but Lenny was absolutely not having it. Just a few steps away, water balloons were getting absolutely shredded at a sketchy carnival booth. A single dart hit dead center, exploding water everywhere. Lenny totally lost her mind, hoisting her grand prize into the air like a trophy, while the whole crowd hyped up her massive win. Beaming, she bear-hugged the giant fluffy plushie she just secured. He was just cracking up in the background, awkwardly shoving a weird little creature right up to his face. Once golden hour finally hit, they posted up on a random street bench, just quietly people watching the busy market. Taking a massive bite of the street food, she mumbled that it was top tier, and her little brother would literally die for it. A quick flashback showed her family basically struggling in the trenches back home. Turning to face him, Lenny actually got soft and thanked him for hanging out. But then she dropped the truth bomb. She totally knew a high-level blade master didn't actually need a rookie sidekick. Thinking about the upcoming bloodbath, she quietly confessed she'd be thrilled just making it out of this suicide mission alive. Squeezing the absolute life out of her plushie, she admitted her anxiety spiked through the roof whenever her family crossed her mind. Shaking it off, she popped up from the bench, loudly declaring that today was an absolute 10 out of 10, totally stress-free vibe. Flashing a huge, genuine smile, she swore she'd never forget this day and pitched that their next epic link-up should happen back in the Empire. Hearing that innocent invite he just gave her, this deer-in-headlights look, utterly stunned, silent. Hidden right under the bench, he white-knuckled his fist quietly, whispering the word link-up to himself, still glued to the seat. He teased if the so-called tough girl was gonna chicken out and stay behind if things got real, playfully poking her cheek with a stray leaf. She shot back that she just strictly followed the chain of command. With a cocky grin, she flexed that the Iron Wolf Knights absolutely never back down from a boss fight. Hearing her fiery answer, he just locked eyes with her in dead silence, letting those heavy words sink in. Smash cut to pitch black. The scene suddenly drops us straight into a toxic dungeon, built right onto the back of that colossal sea beast. Hitting up Isadora over the comms, he brought up rumors of a mythic weapon hidden in this exact zone. Something packing enough firepower to straight up one-shot Lotus. Scanning the creepy environment, he instantly called her out for conveniently leaving out. The massive, freaky alien egg pods glued everywhere. Stepping up to one, he muttered out loud, trying to figure out what the heck these glowing sacks actually were. But right on cue, one of the giant pods started violently cracking and splitting wide open. A mutant nightmare was literally brewing inside. Laying eyes on the monster, Aganzo took a shocked step back, wondering if he actually recognized that twisted silhouette from somewhere. In one hyperfast blur, the creature totally shattered its shell, breaking completely loose and dripping with slime. Screeching, the monstrosity blitzed forward at insane speed, completely ready to wipe Aganzo's whole squad off the map. Meanwhile, back at the Magatha docks, Roboto is sweating the fact that the Vanguard team is totally MIA and taking way too long. Squinting into the clouds, Dan suddenly hypes up the return of the Magatha airship. Muse finally touches down. She struts down the ramp totally solo, leaving the whole squad dead confused. Hartman Kruger steps right up, demanding to know why she is rolling back without her crew. Dead silent, she just tosses him the Knight Captain's official badge. Reality hits him like a truck. He instantly barks out orders telling the Iron Wolf Knights to rally up right this second. Cut to the lounge. Massive shout out to Sharon because all of his locked up loot finally gets unsealed. He pulls up his stat window and his jaw drops. His rep just skyrocketed, multiplying by 10. Hype levels are off the charts. He flexes totally ready to take these brand new powers for a test drive. But hold up. He suddenly realizes every single piece of his gear just vanished into thin air. Tripping out, he stares down at his empty hands, wondering if he just turned completely invisible. As they make a break for the exit, a super familiar voice catches their attention. It is Iris the Seer. She is deep in thought, wondering if these next few minutes are about to make or break the entire future of Arad. Peeking through the crack of the door, our boy catches her sliding the bracelet straight over to Muse. He knows deep down she isn't acting on her own. Snapping the shiny new bracelet onto her wrist, Muse gets fully locked in for the upcoming raid. Flashing back to the original plotline, our MC knows that item is going to glitch out hard later on, but whatever, he brushes it off, choosing to hyper-focus on keeping this timeline from going completely off the rails. Cut back to the docks. Hearts hits Muse with the green light, confirming the raid prep is 100% locked and loaded. Up on the deck, Roboto is screaming at them to hustle up so they can take off right now. Striding toward the airship, Muse feels the heavy realization that the ultimate showdown is actually happening. Moments later, the massive engines roar to life, kicking off their final death trip straight toward the monster Lotus. Down at base camp, the tactical strike splits into two wild fronts. The main squad breaks apart into a dual assault team. Muse's crew is on full rescue duty, pulling out survivors, while our boy and the heavy-hitting knights make a mad dash straight for Lotus's throat. Out on the battlefield, absolute chaos hits. A monster gets its head blown clean off with a single, perfectly timed snipe. The knights are dropping literal bombs all over the zone, blasting a bloody highway straight through the endless enemy swarms. Out of nowhere, this twisted beast lunges in, screeching that they all need to die for Lotus. Spotting the threat, our MC screams at everyone to fall back immediately. Moving like an absolute blur, he blitzes across the war zone, slicing down multiple beasts in a heartbeat. The whole squad is shook, literally unable to even track his insane speed. But wait, a massive tentacle slithers through the shadows and blindsides the crew. The freakish monster snatches up Knight Dan, who instantly starts screaming his lungs out for help. Orlando does not even blink. He goes feral, shredding the creature to pieces and ripping Dan out of its grip in flat seconds. Seeing this massive flex, Fiona is mind-blown. She starts wondering if this dude is the legendary fighter Lenny was yapping about. Meanwhile, our MC drops a heavy warning. Lotus is going to use hardcore mind control. The knights start totally sweating bullets, begging them to hold the line. He reveals his secret cheat code, popping open his literal third eye. Locking onto the nasty dark energy rolling in, he builds up a massive mental shield. But just seconds later, he starts glitching out, acting super sketchy. Dan panics, asking what the hell is wrong. The exact second our boy's eyes start glowing like crazy, the psychic strike completely hacks into his brain. Boom! A colossal nightmarish creature manifests right in front of him, demanding he drop to his knees and serve. Orlando instantly realizes the Apostle's sick mind games have officially kicked off. He forces himself to chill out, clinging to the fact that Lotus is currently nerfed and weakened. But the beast throws a curveball, demanding to know how he knows about the star called Solaris. Orlando's heart drops. He realizes this freak is literally reading straight through his private thoughts. Fighting off a brain-splitting migraine, he hears Lotus muttering about how wild and entertaining this whole situation is. Lotus straight up calls him out and angrily demands to know what universe our main character actually crawled out from. He desperately tries to blank out his brain to hide the spoilers, but the monster cranks up the mental gravity, threatening to pop his head like a balloon if he does not start spilling the tea right now. Digging deep into his hidden memories, Lotus mocks his real home world, calling it a depressing, polluted concrete jungle. That is when Orlando decides to flip the script. He fires back, dumping an absolute tsunami of raw data directly into the monster's brain. Totally overloaded by the massive info dump, the beast short-circuits. It starts violently backing off, screeching in pure agony. It screams out, begging to know what the hell those twisted thoughts are, pleading with him to turn it off. Even though the massive brain blast leaves him running on fumes, Orlando totally tanks the backlash of his own savage mind strike. Watching the terrifying monster actually crawl backwards in fear, he realizes the scales just tipped completely in his favor. And this is his ultimate opening. He proudly owns it, straight up admitting he is from a whole different dimension, and that is exactly why he is built different. Armed with insane future knowledge and his sword drawn, he drops a massive bombshell. He can actually break Lotus out of this hellhole. Pressing the cold steel right against the creature's throat, he spits out a lethal warning, never snoop through his head again. Unfazed, the monster sneers, asking if he seriously has the guts to make a gamble that insane. Not even blinking, Orlando fires back. He's got absolutely zero left to lose, considering he's already marked for death anyway. Flashing a deeply unsettling grin, Lotus finally caves. So, what is it you truly want, human? Cutting straight to the chase, Orlando zeroes in. Is Lotus the actual mastermind behind all this sick corruption? The beast mulls it over, noting that sure, some apostles like that filthy freak Lizier do spread nasty plagues. Orlando shuts that down fast. He isn't talking about some biological virus, but Lotus just brushes it off like total garbage. Seeing our boy still pushing the issue, the giant beast totally loses it, bursting into a booming, mocking laughter, leaving our MC completely dumbfounded. Leaning in, the monster taunts him. Doesn't he already know the answer to his own burning question? Boom. The truth drops. Only one specific apostle could ever pull off tricking Nimir's all-seeing eye. The gears turn in Orlando's head. Everything clicks. His gut feeling was dead on from day one. There is literally only one person capable of pulling off a stunt this massive. The insanely powerful shadow-cloaked Hilda. That insanely powerful enigma, Hilda. Utterly annoyed, our MC mutters to himself. Why is the most frustrating target always the root of the corruption? Catching his frustrated vibe, Lotus mocks him for living in total denial. Without even needing to dive into his brain, the creature lists off the very few apostles who actually pack that kind of god-tier power. Not holding back, Orlando asks if her powers actually outclass Lotus's. That strikes a major nerve. The beast snaps, screaming out, warning the human to never compare him to those total losers. Realizing he just triggered the monster, Orlando listens as Lotus trashes every single ability the other apostles possess, calling them straight-up garbage. Hyping himself up, the creature declares himself the one and absolute king of the oceans, dropping his voice into a chilling threat. He boasts that down in the deep sea he can forcefully rip out even a person's most deeply buried, traumatizing memories. A light bulb goes off in Orlando's head. Hilda totally lacks mind-reading powers. She heavily relies on pure strategy. If she could actually read minds, she wouldn't be sweating bullets over the seer Iris's memories. But before he can fire off another question, Lotus's massive tongue whips out, cutting him off and demanding answers right now. The monster wants to know what the hell that weird box in his visions was. Roaring at the top of his lungs, the beast demands to know why a god like him was trapped inside some tiny, pathetic box. Completely cornered, our boy realizes he's out of options. He spills the beans, dropping a massive spoiler about the actual future. He brutally warns Lotus that the other adventurers are about to wipe the floor with him. Seething with pure rage, the creature threatens to crush him into dust. But Orlando just glares right back, completely unfazed. Beyond furious, the beast hinges its jaws open, flashing rows of razor-sharp, terrifying teeth. But shockingly, Lotus backs down, muttering that this just isn't the vibe right now to play games with a human. Whipping up a massive whirlpool, he orders Orlando to scram before he unleashes absolute hell. As the crushing waves blast him away, our MC is left reeling. Why the hell is the monster actually letting him walk away? While he wrecks his brain over it, we cut straight to Muse's squad pushing through the zone. Suddenly, her high-tech bracelet flashes wildly, before completely flatlining. Gasping for air, Orlando jolts awake in a cold sweat, finally free from the Apostle's sick mind games. Stumbling to his feet, Fiona catches him, waking up just as he disorientedly asks where he is. Suddenly, Night Dan sprints into the clearing, completely out of breath with crazy urgent news. He yells that the adventurer went MIA, and Lenny is already out there hunting for her solo, realizing how insanely bad this is. Fiona screams that they need to move right now and dashes off. Sprinting right behind her, it hits Orlando like a freight train. This was the exact reason Lotus let him slide. With Muse's jammer completely dead, he figures out his entire squad just got brainwashed, panic creeping in. He's terrified Lenny is going to get slaughtered facing that nightmare alone. Heart pounding, he knows he has to speedrun this before absolute tragedy strikes. But slamming on the brakes, a heavy thought hits him. What is he even going to do when he actually catches up? Doubting himself hard, he remembers his true mission: stop the corruption, not trigger more of it. Out of nowhere, reality literally tears open, ripping a massive glowing rift right into the forest air. Eyes totally blown wide, he whips around to face this insane glitch in space. Two figures start stepping out of the void, leaving him completely paralyzed with shock. Dropping his jaw, he watches Muse and Iris casually stroll out of the portal, side by side. Catching this wild scene, he's totally mind-boggled. What happened to Lotus's so-called mind control? Right on their heels. Siron steps out of the rift too, casually asking if they finally made it to the big bad boss. Behemoth whips around totally shook, locking eyes with the mystery dude who just spawned out of the dimensional rift. Scanning the guy's drip and his insane blade, the puzzle pieces finally click. Holy crap, it's Saran, one of the legendary 4 weapon masters. Our time traveler instantly realizes Siron dragged them straight into a timeline from the past. He sizes up the squad. Yep, they definitely time skipped. Suddenly, Lenny's voice cuts through the tension, yelling at our adventurer to freeze right where he stands. Catching the vibe, he pivots only to hear Siron smugly declare that he finally tracked him down. Siron immediately drops a warning: don't touch a single thing or this whole timeline gets totally messed up. Yanking his sword from its sheath, he sets one rule: hands off everything, except Lenny. Our guy is completely thrown off. Wait, wasn't this supposed to be just a stealthy observation mission? Meanwhile, Muse and Iris are locked onto the staircase where nasty dark corruption is literally dripping from the ceiling. Shadowy monsters are creeping toward the downed redhead. He stays perfectly still, knowing the Time Lords will definitely crash the party if he makes a move. Suddenly, boom! A massive explosion shreds the staircase, obliterating the walls around it. Lenny gets blasted backward, barely dodging the crossfire. Catching him spacing out, Muse screams at the adventurer to get his head back in the game. Siren points his blade at a doorway, warning the squad that their target is right inside. Gripping his weapon, the dude hypes everyone up. It's go time. He dashes forward, perfectly parrying the enemy's strike with his glowing, overpowered blade. Knocked on his butt, Siron is totally clueless, wondering what the heck just hit him. The adventurer goes full aggro, making Siron question if this guy is secretly an apostle. Still rocking his disguise, our MC realizes his cover isn't blown yet, and he absolutely cannot let them ruin the timeline. But his disguise starts glitching out and panic sets in. If he gets exposed, he is super cooked. Siren somehow manages to sidestep another lightning-fast combo coming his way. Terrified of getting outed, he starts sweating over the Time Lords, potentially crashing down on them. The duel turns completely savage, with both guys trading non-stop heavy hits across the entire courtyard. Confused as hell, he wonders why the timeline isn't breaking just as he spots Muse charging up an attack right behind him, using a flash step. He tries to blow past Siron to interrupt her cast. Siron gets absolutely pissed, screaming at him for having the guts to take his eyes off a one-on-one fight. Taking a brutal hit to the back, he eats the damage while Siren keeps pressing the offense, channeling raw energy into his palm. He starts charging up one of his absolute darkest skills. He suddenly nukes the whole area with a massive burst of dark energy, aiming to wipe everyone out at once, totally blindsided. Siron and Muse get completely caught in the crossfire. Screaming his lungs out, he pushes the attack to its absolute limit, but out of literally nowhere. The seer Iris absolutely decks him in the face. Sprawled out on the dirt, his brain is short-circuiting over this random, insanely out-of-character punch. While he's eating dust, Iris starts screaming for Siron and the adventurer, seeing an opening. The corrupted freaks swarm in to finish off the defenseless redhead, but instead of throwing hands, Iris begs them to save Lenny's life. The traveler and Muse are totally lost by this flex. They glance down at the girl, bleeding out on the floor. Suddenly, a glowing red dagger snipes the monster at max speed, scoring a perfect headshot. The blade melts the demon, pulling off a clutch save for Lenny. But right on cue, the beefed-up Siron and Muse start beefing with each other. She yells at him to drop the attitude immediately. Out of nowhere, Fiona and Dan crash the scene, completely shocking the downed redhead. Watching this chaotic mess, he's racking his brain over why they just ambushed Iris's squad. Sprinting straight into the fray, Fiona screams that she finally caught them, calling them a bunch of crazy cultists. Watching a massive brawl break out, he is utterly clueless about their beef. Standing there, like an NPC in the middle of the war zone, his brain freezes. Grabbing Muse by the collar, the Knight Dan roars in his face, demanding to know what his problem is. He tells him to stop stalling and go save Lenny before she's toast. Still totally stun-locked, our guy just hesitates, stuck in a massive decision-making paralysis. Exploiting the distraction, one of the shadow monsters violently backstabs Lenny. She crumbles to the ground, and it looks like Muse caught some splash damage too. But scanning the carnage, Muse just glares back with absolute zero-chill determination. Snapping out of it, our boy finally locks in, pivots around, and prepares to join the bloodbath. Sprinting into the danger zone, he fires off an attack while screaming Lenny's name. Meanwhile, Muse straight up tanks the damage, charges up her ultimate skill, and blasts a massive energy nuke straight at the downed knight. Looking up, the redhead locks eyes with the incoming strike. Frozen in pure panic, she can't even flinch, but right at the buzzer, he literally throws his body in front of her to tank the massive hit. As soon as the dust clears, a dead silence chokes the entire battlefield. Even with him taking the hit, Lenny collapses hard against the concrete, absolutely wrecked and drenched in blood. Just a few steps away, Iris stays locked in a tense standoff with Agonzo while everyone else is completely knocked out cold. Seeing her bestie broken on the floor, Fiona totally loses it, breaking down in tears right next to Dan. Standing there, he just stares at the absolute nightmare unfolding, completely paralyzed, gripping his fists until his knuckles turn white. He remembers this brutal death is literally baked into the original timeline. Right then, the heavy metal bracelet on Muse's wrist suddenly flares up, glowing with a blinding intensity. His left eye glitches out, flashing the unmistakable sign of some twisted high-level corruption. But a split second later, his right eye violently snaps back to reality, completely shattering the mind control. Spotting Iris taken down, Agonzo slowly stalks toward his grounded rival. Wrestling with what the hell the right play is here, he heavily debates his next move regarding Lenny. Slumped on the ground, Muse and the beefy guy are suddenly swallowed by this creepy pitch-black energy. Watching the chaos unfold, he instantly clocks the enemy forces, picking themselves back up in the sketchiest way possible. Fully corrupted now, future Siran and Muse completely flip the script, turning straight against him and the squad. Mind blown. He can't wrap his head around how these guys turned into literal brainwashed zealots if they came from the future. Clenching his fists tight, he realizes it's playing out. Exactly like the cursed original lore, but then it clicks. Someone is digging straight through his thoughts. Feeling that sickening monster aura creep up again, he knows he can't let this slide. He hears Lotus's chilling voice, echoing that it was still living rent-free inside his head. It hits him. Lotus hardcore played him, projecting fake illusions of those zealots, just to make them look like his crew. Knowing he just fell for a massive bait, he realizes he got completely clowned. From day one. Snapping violently out of the trance, he finds himself chilling on a random rooftop, miles away from the bloodbath. Boiling with pure rage, he smashes the concrete, screaming the Apostle Lotus's name at the top of his lungs. Glaring out at the beast, he finally connects the dots. Lotus was the ultimate source of the corruption all along. Flashing a murderous glare, he swears on everything to absolutely slaughter the Apostle Lotus. The camera pans straight to the core of the dungeon where the boss raid is going absolutely crazy, sprinting across massive, slimy tentacles. Vaughn slashes frantically at the beast, but his blades literally bounce off, doing zero damage, flexing its insane armor. The creature aggressively trashes the humans for constantly throwing themselves at it, whipping its massive limbs around. It violently snatches both of them up, mocking their pathetic power levels. But Vaughn just smirks, telling the freak not to get cocky while facing two literal grandmasters. Triggered. The beast tells him to shut his mouth and viciously swings another tentacle. But out of nowhere, Muse dive bombs from the ceiling, slamming into the monster and busting the captain wide open. Calling out the rogue adventurer, she heavily roasts him for showing up late to the raid. Catching him on the scene, the freakish monster is totally stumped on how he broke out of its hardcore mind trap, malfunctioning over the massive L. The beast legit starts sweating, wondering if it's actually about to get packed up by this random adventurer. Chuckling at the chaotic mess, she completely roasts the monster, telling it not to make her laugh with such a pathetic flex. Seeing her go absolutely feral, the captain raises an eyebrow, wondering why she suddenly got so incredibly hyped up. Without missing a beat, she rapid-fires a brutal barrage of energy arrows straight at the target. The piercing shots absolutely shred into the beast's tentacles, popping off a massive chain reaction of flashy mini-explosions. Reaching her hand out, she screams she's gonna wipe them all off the map right here, right now. But a rogue tentacle viciously snatches her up, before she can even blink or throw up a defense. Suddenly, a thick cloud of toxic purple smoke completely swallows them both, vanishing them into thin air without leaving a single trace behind. Popping a quick skill, Muse instantly glitches back into reality in a safe spot, totally breaking free from the monster's nasty grip. Vaughn is heavily blown away by a clutch teleport, hyping up the player's god-tier mechanics. The beast furiously aggroes back onto her, but Muse just deadass stares the terrifying monster down with pure ice in her veins. Unleashing a hypercharged kick, she lands a devastating critical hit that makes the creature screech in agony. Seeing the massive boss finally hit 0 HP, she instantly gets the gut feeling this raid is far from over. From a distance, the captain lets out a huge sigh of relief, claiming the nightmare grind is finally done. Whining a bit, he brags that his squad could have totally cleared it without any adventurer carry, tossing them a quick GG for the backup. He points straight at a weird glowing energy orb that just spawned. But out of nowhere, Lotus's terrifying voice echoes out, growling not to make him laugh, flaring up with a blinding light. The creature's giant eyeball starts venting out an absolutely insane amount of raw power. The concrete violently shakes beneath their feet, and the entire dungeon starts crumbling into a massive pile of rubble. That massive whale-like beast finally makes its move, dragging the entire dungeon straight toward its doom. The whole place starts crumbling, and the squad is literally holding on for dear life, so they don't get yeeted into the void. Agonzo is absolutely livid. He screams at Lotus, demanding to know what the hell he's pulling. Right then, his eye starts glowing with this sick, toxic light. The dark corruption is completely taking over. And it's contagious. Agonzo's eye flares up with that exact same shadowy corruption. A second later, the player's eye catches the exact same cursed vibe. Clang. Agonzo's sword hits the deck. He's completely, totally mind-controlled. Staring dead-eyed Muse just starts giggling like an absolute psycho. Fully possessed, she just cackles hysterically, leaving the rest of the crew totally tripped out and clueless about what's actually. The beast mocks their fate, bragging that the almighty Lotus is going to take the W in the end. Reflected right in the monster's giant pupil, our guy is getting insanely hyped for the ultimate showdown. Dodging falling rocks, our MC gets right up in the giant sea monster's face. Orlando casually drops the mic, saying it's game over for the Apostle. Out of the rubble, Captain Van rolls up, ready to throw down with the adventuring squad. Glaring holes into the adventurer, he furiously demands to know why he's laughing when stuff just got insanely real. Smirking, our guy hits back, saying it's because Van is about to get completely smoked right here. Super shook, Lotus asks how he's even moving while brainwashed. The beast instantly tries to fry his brain with psychic hacks, but a glowing energy shield completely tanks the hit, leaving the monster baffled about how he just blocked that. The psychic blast literally bounces off, yeeting the other adventurers all the way across the map. Flexing on the beast, he dares Lotus to peek inside his head and find the cheat code to his ultimate defense. Using its powers, Lotus catches a flashback of him casually buying some gear at the market. Those resistance potions scattered on the floor totally expose his big brain strat. The memory shifts to him ordering that exact item from Kana's shop, explaining he copped it specifically to hard counter the monster's mind tricks. Absolutely raging, the beast thrashes its giant tentacles ready to strike. Screeching, Lotus totally snaps at him for using such a cheap try-hard trick against an actual apostle. Laughing it off, the beast promises it's got more than enough hands to squash him like a bug, even without its psychic hacks. Completely over this villain monologue, our MC screams that it's time to end this fight. Right here, right now. Cut to a massive moonlit tower where one of Lotus's nasty little minions gets absolutely obliterated in just one hit. Swatting away a massive tentacle with his sword, he roasts the monster, asking how it plans to crush him now. Going full aggro, the creature skips the chit-chat and launches a heavy assault. Its tentacle tips start glowing neon, locking on to blast massive energy beams. He beautifully dodges the whole barrage, weaving through the monster's laser show like a pro. But out of nowhere, a rogue tentacle blindsides him and sends him flying. Smug as hell, the monster flexes that it can read his every single move like an open book. The beast taunts him, asking how he even plans to box with someone who already knows his entire combo. Flashing a cocky smirk, our guy challenges if the beast can actually read everything. He immediately triggers a skill, unleashing a massive tsunami-level wave of raw energy. He tanks a heavy hit but instantly charges his next move, manifesting a glowing cross of dark energy right in front of him. The monster instantly gets suspicious, thinking he's setting up some sneaky trap. Our MC knows exactly what to do. He needs to drop an attack so fast the creature's brain literally can't process it. Chuckling, the monster claims it just needs to calculate where the final strike will land. Scanning his brain, Lotus perfectly predicts the ultimate combo and spins around to block, totally convinced it just secured the bag. It declares it's game over, but then it completely freezes, totally mind-blown by what happens next. Moving at Godspeed, he rushes the beast straight from the front, catching it completely lacking. Totally paralyzed, the monster is desperately trying to figure out how it just got front-stabbed instead of backstabbed. Locking in, our hero cues up another heavy swing, baiting his thoughts to target the right side. The creature whips around to guard the right, but boom, the strike brutally hits from the exact opposite blind spot. Sweating it, wonders how the hell he's glitching his attacks. That's when he drops the craziest plot twist. He's literally just spamming raw game inputs to trigger his moves. Since the beast's brain can't process actual controller inputs, its psychic radar is totally useless. He completely disrespects it, asking what's wrong, since it was just flexing about reading minds. Hard punishing the boss, he unleashes an insane combo, absolutely melting the giant monster with massive damage. Catching the glare of an incoming strike, the beast whips around to block it. Our boy seizes the opening, thrusting his blade straight for its eye. But out of nowhere, a massive tentacle swats him away, slamming him hard into a stone pillar. Coughing up blood from the brutal impact, he listens as the creature mocks him, bragging that it finally cracked his game controls. The monster flexes how it completely juked him using directional shifts. Chuckling, it claims to have memorized every single combo, just by diving into his memories. Boom. Another tentacle nails him dead center, knocking him flat. A relentless barrage follows. The enemy's speed is insane, completely overwhelming his defenses. Those tentacles just keep raining down on him, dealing devastating non-stop damage. Sprawled out on the dirt, his body gives out. Seeing him totally wrecked, the monster cackles at its guaranteed W. Paralyzed, it hits him. His old attack patterns are useless now. One final crushing blow sends him flying, seemingly ending the whole fight. Pinned to the ground, he glares at the beast as it trashes all that cocky confidence he had just minutes ago. Spitting venom, the creature asks if all this rage is 4 times. Her times. Twisting the knife by saying times. He times was the one who let her die. Suddenly, a crazy volley of ice spikes blitzes right at him. Refusing to back down, our MC just charges headfirst into the danger, screaming the monster's name, betting everything on one final strike. The beast's eye flares up, radiating this insanely toxic dark energy. And, right then, a tentacle punches clean through his chest. The monster laughs, calling him an absolute idiot for trying to fight a lost cause. But with pure absolute zero in his eyes, he just keeps pushing forward. Tapping into insane speed, he slides past the impaling appendage and closes in on the main body. Weaving through a deadly storm of strikes, he brutally sinks his blade deep into one of those massive tentacles. Completely mind-blown, the monster glitches out, wondering what the hell it just saw, pouring every ounce of his soul into it. He roars that this ends right here, right now. The thing demands to know what kind of cheat code he just pulled, but its only answer is a blinding flurry of slashes that completely shreds multiple tentacles, dealing massive critical damage. Freaking out over how he is still standing, the monster frantically rips through the MC's memories again. It aggressively scans every single detail, hunting for the ultimate glitch. Suddenly, it locks onto one specific memory, glowing way brighter than the rest. Hooked, it zooms in on a hidden skill tree, packed with insane requirements like super armor. But its brain literally cannot process what it is looking at. Right then, our guy dashes in, vaporizing a whole cluster of tentacles in one god-tier sweep. Panic mode activated. The creature screams that this is literally impossible, that the math ain't mathing. Totally clueless about the concept of invincibility frames. It just can't fathom this madness. Launching himself straight into the sky, our hero raises his greatsword, charging up the ultimate finisher. Seeing the massive area of effect, the beast starts begging for mercy, but it is way too late. Flashing back to the redhead girl, he whispers an apology, accepting this as his one true punishment. He vows pure vengeance, promising to wipe out the apostles and cleanse this total corruption. Swallowed by pitch-black aura, he swears to purge every last one of them. Funneling every drop of his mana into a single fist, he unleashes hell. A massive nuke-level beam of dark energy erupts, locking straight onto the Grand Apostle. Putting his entire soul into it, he forces the blast forward, detonating all that stacked power. The beam zeroes in on the monster's eye before boring a massive hole straight through its entire body, dealing apocalyptic damage. The blast instantly vaporizes everything in its path, carving out a massive boulders are sent flying like pebbles from the shockwave. The beam just keeps ripping through, shredding the very fabric of the earth and carving a brand new canyon straight across the wasteland. When the dust finally settles, just a few dead leaves drift through the air in dead, chilling silence. Where the raid boss used to be, nothing but a terrifyingly huge gorge splitting the entire map in half. He turns his back on the carnage, whispering a final goodbye to Lenny as her sacrifice replays in his head. The rain is absolutely pouring now. The ancient ruins are literally on the verge of collapsing. Right in the middle of this massive storm, the whole temple starts crumbling into absolute dust. Down on the ground, a totally severed tentacle leaks thick blood, sealing the end of this epic raid. Battered to a pulp, the colossal boss Lotus struggles to pull itself up from the wreckage. It finally hits him. He was never the main character, just a disposable puppet in some twisted, scripted storyline, pacing along the edge of the cliff. A mysterious figure slowly creeps up on the shattered monster, chillingly asking if he was satisfied with how his script ended. Lotus just rasped back that he, turns out bro was literally just another mindless puppet completely consumed by the corruption. Busting out a psychotic laugh, he hoisted his blade high, totally locked in for the kill shot. Without a single drop of hesitation, he went absolutely feral, ruthlessly blitzing the apostle in one final savage strike. But off in the distance, a mysterious pair of eyes was quietly tracking the. Then, straight out of nowhere, the elite archer muse dropped right into the Van was totally stunned. Did she seriously solo the apostle Lotus, gazing out into the distance? Isadora grilled the adventurer about the boss fight, completely mind-blown by the flex. She called it unreal. And her partner totally agreed it was a massive W. All around them, a heavy downpour kept hammering the forest, showing zero mercy. Back at the outpost, a knight screamed to hustle the medics for the wounded. Lobato noticed that the toxic, suffocating vibe was finally fading away. Van nodded, realizing the adventurer clutched up at the perfect second, his eyes tracking two silhouettes fading into the background. Just a few steps away, Fiona locked onto the messy aftermath with a dead serious glare. Van shifted his focus to a squad of knights huddling up heavily, hauling a fallen comrade in their arms. Sir Dan silently stepped up to join the grim circle. Moments later, the entire squad stood frozen in the pouring rain, looking up to pay their absolute respects to the fallen. Tracking every single move, Orlando lurked behind a massive tree trunk, soaking in the heavy, solemn vibe from a safe distance. The sky just kept dumping buckets of rain, completely drowning out the night encampment. Inside the makeshift base, Lenny's lifeless body was gently laid to rest alongside the other fallen soldiers. To lock in his final promotion, a shiny knight's badge was pinned respectfully onto his chest. But then Van broke the silence, telling the crew to hype up their massive win instead of crying over the dead. Lobato was completely triggered. He snapped back, asking if the guy felt literally. The captain shot back deadpan. He claimed that catching feelings was straight up disrespectful for a knight supposed to uphold his honor. Our boy instantly recognized that exact toxic dialogue line. He had spammed through that text box a million times back in the game. Super annoyed by the heavy tension, Van barked at Agonzo, asking where he was dipping off to. Agonzo just muttered he was going to double-check Lotus's corpse. He needed to be 100% sure this nightmare was actually over. Right then, it clicked for Orlando. Van's actual endgame wasn't just victory, the dude was scheming to siphon Lotus's raw power for himself. Clenching his fists hard, our MC made a massive call. He was officially stepping back from messing with the main questline. Even if ghosting the storyline triggered a wild butterfly effect that could totally scramble the future. And just like that, the crazy behemoth arc was officially wrapped up. Smash cut to a new scene. A shadowy silhouette slipped on a brand new, freshly looted mask. Sharon was totally mind-blown. She asked Orlando how on earth he could even see through that weird gear, never guessing it functioned. Exactly like standard in-game loot. Sure, vintage relics like that used to drop back in the day, but they were basically vaulted now, impossible to grab. Cracking the code, our MC realized a massive cheat. He could farm ultra-rare locked items just by literally ripping them off monster corpses. Super curious, Sharon asked if he had smuggled in any other wild drops for her to appraise. Out of nowhere, a random dude jumped out of his skin when a loud shriek violently echoed from right outside the guild hall. Hissing in absolute agony, Orlando begged Sharon to watch out for his shredded muscles, which were still screaming in pain. He quickly realized that the brutal debuff from popping that super armor skill was still totally wrecking his system. Luckily, the word on the street was already blowing up. Everyone knew a solo adventurer was the one who actually clapped the raid boss Lotus. Sharon switched the topic, dropping a heavy hint that he had bigger problems to stress over, pointing out the crazy level up he just went through. She basically told him his street cred had skyrocketed, making his voice a massive deal now, not missing a beat. He flexed a secret stash item he had been hoarding in his inventory. His insane stats left Sharon completely speechless. She went all in, throwing down an official contract to draft him into the Mage Guild. Staring down at the thick paperwork in his hands, Orlando just stood there, letting an awkward silence hang in the air for a second. The camera pans back into the chill, cozy vibe of the guild's main lobby. With the ink drying on his new contract, he instantly demanded his upfront bag, which she casually handed over. The second he spun around to dip, Sharon called out, asking where he was rushing off to. Orlando just shrugged, saying he had to go verify a glitch and would be back in a couple of days. Pushing the heavy doors open, he tossed a look back. He told her not to stress about the cash. He finally had a legit reason to go full tryhard. Trudging down the muddy trail, his eyes finally locked onto a busted-up signpost pointing exactly where he needed to go. Cringing from a sharp spike of muscle pain, he cursed out loud. The massive storm had totally wiped out the main road, leading straight to Elvengard. He pulled up his mental map, confirming he still had to trek all the way out there just to track down an NPC blacksmith named Linus. Totally lost on what his next move was, he sighed out loud, wondering if it was finally time to swallow his pride and call in some backup. Sharon steps up and hands him this sus glowing potion she just brewed. Bro is totally clueless and asks what it is. But she just hits him with a deadpan, "You seriously do not know," before he can even process what is happening. She straight up force feeds the concoction down his throat. Zero warning, boom, a blinding flash of light completely swallows him whole. In a split second, he glitches out of reality, vanishing right in front of her. Next thing you know, he crash lands face first into the dirt, groaning in absolute agony. He rubs his eyes, looking around like a totally lost tourist. Staring in awe, it hits him, he finally made it to Elvengard Forest. Realizing Sharon basically drugged him with a fast travel potion, he immediately sprints into action. Sweating over his level cap, he spots a blacksmith's forge blazing in the distance. As he pulls up, He yells out for Linus the beefy smith, who is already grinding away at the anvil. Linus grumbles that the vibe has been totally dead ever since Saria packed up and left recently, going in for a massive bro hug. Linus casually asks about that friend Orlando was supposed to save. Orlando just freezes, going dead silent. For a hot second, just staring blankly at the blacksmith's face. The tragic image of Lenny flashes through his mind, right before everything went horribly wrong for her. Swallowing his heartbreak with a tragic look, he whispers that there is no need to worry about it anymore, quickly shifting gears, why he actually came all this way. Orlando admits he desperately needs help forging a god-tier new blade for the upcoming war. Giving him a massive side-eye, the blacksmith demands to know what happened to the legendary sword he already crafted for him. After the guilt trip, Linus presses him on exactly what kind of weapon he wants and if he actually brought the crafting materials. He leans in asking what crazy loot Orlando dragged over to be looking this hyped. Our boy just smirks, opens his inventory, and absolutely launches a massive, fleshy monstrosity, slamming the blacksmith right in the face. Stumbling back in pure shock, Linus screams, demanding to know what the heck this giant hunk of meat is. Flexing a cocky grin, Orlando casually drops that it is a severed tentacle sliced straight off Lotus. Absolutely triggered, the blacksmith snaps, yelling how he is supposed to forge a sword out of a literal calamari leg, playing the ultimate reverse psychology card. Orlando sighs, saying, "It is probably way above his pay grade anyway." He turns his back loudly, dropping that only the absolute greatest blacksmith could pull off a masterclass like this. Taking the bait hook, line, and sinker, Linus barks at him to stay right there. Smashing his hammer down with insane force, he roars that he never once said he could not do it. Seeing the blacksmith take the challenge, our MC throws a wicked smirk, knowing his manipulation worked perfectly. Hyped up, he asks if it will be an easy craft, but Linus brutally demands 1 full week and a ton of extra materials. With the weapon upgrade on lock, Orlando decides to hit the market to stock up on healing potions. But sheer panic instantly sets in when he remembers he burned his only fast travel potion just getting here, totally stranded, with zero clue how to get back. Out of nowhere, a sharp voice screams his name. It is Sharon lecturing him that he really should have listened to the rest of her tutorial. Tossing him another glowing, she tells him to just visualize his drop zone before chugging it. As he gets ready to down the liquid, he randomly asks why her potion is not the standard yellow. Caught completely off guard, she pauses, glaring at him with pure annoyance. Then she absolutely goes off on him, screaming never to compare her premium organic brew to those cheap trash knockoffs at the market. Terrified by her psycho rage, he frantically stammers a thank you and chugs the potion to escape for his life. Back at the guild hall, the hallway is giving off serious ghost town vibes, dead quiet. He pushes open the heavy doors to one of the back rooms and follows Sharon inside. Looking around in shock, he asks if these fancy digs are his new personal base. She brushes it off, saying she did not have much time to decorate but hopes it does the trick. Right on cue, an assistant walks in carrying an item she special ordered, assuming she got him a sweet housewarming gift. Our boy gets totally hyped and thanks her for the insane surprise. But plot twist, it is actually an official nameplate for the Abnormal Phenomenon Emergency Response Committee. Staring blankly at the nerdy title, he asks what the heck this is. She smirks, telling him it is his brand new desk job. Absolutely horrified by the cringe title, he complains instantly, and they start screaming at each other right there in the office. Out in the hallway, their chaotic shouting match echoes loudly for everyone to hear. Finally taking the L, he slumps into his chair while Sharon coldly informs him that the decision is completely final. She breaks down that he will be running Black Ops for the guild, holding up his end of the contract. Thinking about the insane danger ahead, the horrific aftermath of Behemoth flashes through his mind. He knows deep down that the next boss-level threat is the metastasis of another apocalyptic apostle. This bizarre glitch was literally wiping living beings off the map, leaving zero trace. But hold up. The real tea behind the apostle's metastasis was already out. Flashing back to his memories, he realized Hildur was the ultimate puppet master, pulling the strings. The prophecy laid it out cold. She was plotting to sacrifice Arid to feed the demon realm. Checking his own measly stats, reality hit hard. He'd get absolutely clapped by Hildur right now. Fired up to change that, he bolted up, knowing he had to lock in and grind his power level. He spun around to face Sharon, asking if she could brew up some crazy potions. He dropped the lore, saying he desperately needed a cure for a crazy contagious plague. Stressing out, she asked where Ground Zero was. The Fen's Kingdom, he replied. Just hearing that name, Sharon looked completely shell-shocked by the grim update. Orlando nodded, backing up his intel, proving he fully knew. This was the massive underground fortress carved out by the Dark Elves. Apologizing for the bad vibes, he warned her the infection was already going viral. Meanwhile, deep inside the Elf Kingdom, a panicked guard begged the Dark Elf Elder to evacuate ASAP. Staring down at his crumbling, corrupted city, the Elder pinned the entire disaster straight on humanity. Boiling with rage, the old man swore brutal payback for this filthy sneak attack on his home. Wasting zero time, he screamed for his entire army to rally. At the borders right this second, it was straight-up wartime. Making everyone's worst nightmares real, he officially declared war. Cutting back to the Elvengard forest, the heavy clanking of an anvil echoed through the trees. Orlando was laser-focused, tracking every single move the blacksmith made, holding his breath for the final drop. Surrounded by roaring flames, Linus was sweating bullets, smashing the raw materials with insane raw power, gripping his hammer like his life depended on it. He wound up for the ultimate finishing strike, with one massive pinpoint hit. Boom! The forging was officially wrapped. Panting hard, he hyped up that the tentacle weapon was totally locked and loaded, scanning the OP stats. Orlando hyped him up, saying the blade turned out flawlessly, exactly how he pictured it. Linus was like, what do you mean?" which was Orlando's perfect cue to ask for a huge favor. Sliding him a sleek steel mold, the blacksmith was mad confused about why he needed it. Orlando smirked, explaining it was a hack to swap weapon skins to farm massive cash. Meanwhile, the player named Guessing was casually strolling through the insanely packed streets of the main hub. Yawning, he flexed that he'd already speedrun all his dailies and weeklies. Out of nowhere, a server-wide broadcast blasted his eardrums. Glancing at the pop-up ID, he did a double take. It was Orlando spamming a super megaphone. Orlando was blasting his promo for the whole server to hear. He boldly announced he was auctioning off the colossal Lodos tentacle. Suddenly, Orlando jumped out of his skin as a voice yelled right inside his brain, cursing the janky whisper system. He realized it was Guessing, demanding to know what was in stock. To reply, he had to awkwardly beg GSD for a tutorial on whisper commands. Guessing confirmed the mic was on, and casually dropped an 8 million gold bid for the loot. Orlando eagerly accepted the insane bag, and told him to link up at Elvengard. Seconds later, he practically had a heart attack when a shadow spawned right behind his back. Looming over him was this massive, derpy white dog with its tongue flopping out. Trotting closer, Guessing's dog avatar explained he showed up in person just to see if his ears were tricking him. Totally intrigued, he asked how Orlando snagged such a god-tier boss drop, but Orlando was busy staring at the dog's glowing weapon, asking for its enhancement level. Mind absolutely blown by the answer. He couldn't process that the blade was plus 13. He hinted that a god roll item like that would literally carry him, but got immediately shot down. Totally lost, Orlando then asked why a dog needed such a stupidly expensive sword. The dog just shrugged and said, "Because pink is a vibe, bro." Brain fried by that troll logic, Orlando just rushed to close the trade. Guessing handed over a mountain of gold coins, sealing the massive deal. Securing the bag, Orlando handed over the epic tentacle sword. But wait, Guessing smirked, saying there was one last bonus. Out of nowhere, he shoved a massive, mysterious egg into Orlando's hands. Scanning the item, Orlando's jaw dropped. It was a creature egg. In this game, creatures are insanely rare battle pets, with sick designs and totally broken stat buffs. Cracking up, he thanked him for the carry, admitting that he literally just farmed all that gold to buy a pet anyway. Right on cue, the shell shattered, spawning a tiny, insanely cute mini Lodos monster. Beaming with a massive grin, he watched as the little beast finally cracked out of its shell. Without missing a single beat, he absolutely clocked it with everything he had. Seeing it knocked out cold on the floor, reality hit him. His brain was totally lagging. "Bro, isn't it kinda cute?" Gasson teased. Orlando just gave his buddy a weary nod of appreciation. He sighed and apologized. It definitely was not the pet's fault. It looked exactly like that Lotus creep. Chuckling at the absolute chaos, Gasson casually dropped the invite. "Wanna join my guild?" Orlando instantly curved the offer, making it crystal clear he was not about to boost his chances of getting busted. He gave mad props for the invite, though. Gasson just shrugged, telling him to holler if he ever flipped his script. Fast forward to sunset. Golden hour was hitting the Mage Guild as he finally dragged himself back. He pushed open the doors and called out for Sharon. Crickets. But chilling right there on the desk was a handwritten letter with his name on it. Skimming the ink, relief washed over him. Sharon actually bought it. She believed every wild detail he had spilled. She dropped a massive bombshell. Some sick plague was mutating fresh corpses into twisted freaks. And to make things worse, the Dark Elves were dead, convinced humanity had just pulled the trigger on a biological attack. Tucked inside was a map flashing a massive warning sign. An all-out war between the nations was practically locked in. A rogue squad of adventurers had already been deployed to scout the front lines, and they actually struck gold raw clues pointing to a legit cure for the outbreak. Sharon explained she had been urgently dispatched, alongside a top-tier alchemist to brew that exact remedy. Folding up the letter, it instantly clicked for Orlando. The adventurers were already deep in the trenches handling the mess. Panic spiked. He had to speedrun his way to Ophelia right away because somebody else had already triggered the main questline. Bolting out of the room like a bullet, he crashed headfirst into Saria right at the doorway. Quickly recovering, he flashed his invisible badge, introducing himself as a legit card-carrying member of the Mage Guild. "Does the Queen even grasp how insane this is?" he vented. Saria nodded, totally vibing with his deep frustration. Just down the hall, two mages were super salty that some random nobody got tapped for such a high-stakes mission. Saria instantly stepped up to defend the guy, reminding them that he literally saved her life back in Elvengard. Scoffing with pure disrespect, one of the spellcasters clapped back that stomping basic goblins was light years away from the nightmare they were facing now. She fired right back, eyes sharp, saying she knew that perfectly well because she had been tracking this whole drama up close. Wrapping up the debate, she softly sent her blessings to the adventurer, praying they would absolutely crush this critical raid. Catching that angelic vibe, the three dudes were completely spellbound. With her serene face glowing, they all just stared like a literal goddess had just touched down on Earth. Fired up and locked in, Orlando knew the clock was ticking. He bolted out of there so fast he practically burned skid marks into the floorboards. His hardcore grind through the Shadowlands had officially dropped. He trekked solo through the creeping cursed woods, eyes locked on the distant peaks. Touching down at his drop zone, he stayed frosty radar pinging for any sudden jump scares hiding in the dark. At last he scaled the jagged peaks of Ophelia, peering down at the heavily contested border, splitting two rival kingdoms. Meanwhile, smash cut to the alchemist, Lotan wiping off sweat, loudly claiming that their little experiment could have gone insanely south. But honestly, Lotan was hyped. They had finally cracked the code and synthesized the cure. Absolutely mind-blown, he asked Sharan how she big-brained the exact recipe for all those crazy raw materials. Right on cue, Orlando literally spawned right next to her, calling out her name. With his bizarre little pet basically superglued to his face, he casually announced he was there to carry the team. Totally spooked, Sharon backed up. What the heck is that thing? He just deadpanned, that he had not even bothered naming the little gremlin yet. Brushing right past the whole pet drama, Orlando dropped the grim reality the entire zone was degrading fast. Sharon shot back with worse news: the main highway to the kingdom was completely walled off by infected zombies. Scanning the tactical map, Orlando spotted that the starter dungeon had already been cleared. Doing the quick math in his head, he realized the mystery player was currently speeding through the hero's catacombs. That is exactly where the legendary Lunkel would respawn, turning into the ultimate MVP against the outbreak. Holding his hand out for a hit of the antidote, Orlando declared he was taking this fight to the actual front lines. Flashing a quick warning about the insane aggro out there, Sharon tossed him a vial, telling him she had his back. Gripping the potion tight, Orlando threw a confident smirk. He already had the entire layout of this zone completely memorized. Stepping into the raid zone, the heavy air absolutely reeked of death. Staring down a massive horde of twisted mobs, he pushed forward without flinching for a single second. One of the freaks actually managed to pin him down, but bro just smirked. With one lightning-fast flex, he shattered the creature's grip and went right back on the offensive. These low-tier mobs weren't even a warm-up for his current stats. He just kept pushing forward, totally obliterating every single beast. Dumb enough to block his path. Bam! A dead center, bone-crushing strike, blasted right through a monster's core. His special skill triggered, letting his weapon randomly summon the leg of the Lotus, riding that insane power spike. He absolutely steamrolled the rest of the trash mob surrounding him. Once the dust settled, the floor was just painted with monster guts. He figured it out that toxic plague was definitely spreading from an apostle's aura. His pet kept hyping up how busted his weapon was, but he straight up left the little guy on red. Pushing deeper into the dungeon, the massive pillars of the boss room finally came into view. Stepping up, he confirmed the jackpot, the legendary tomb of Lungal. Walking inside the echoing cavern, he marched straight up to the ancient hero's resting place. But looking at the smashed ruins, something felt off. Why was this place totally deserted? Then it hit him. The hero had already been brought back to life way ahead of schedule. Pulling up the map, he realized his next stop had to be the Dark Elves' crypt. The absolute worst-case scenario, the Death Dragon reviving all the corpses in Ophelia. Meanwhile, his pet started whining about the tiny room and the zero loot drops, catching the little menace trying to snatch a single coin. He snapped at it to drop it. Getting irritated, he literally threatened to cook and eat his own pet if it kept acting up. Cut to another zone. Our guy realized they were boxed in by massive enemy aggro, muttering about their crazy ego. An elite elf soldier, actually, the ancient elf elder Saffron, locked eyes on the newcomer stepping into the fray, flexing his authority as the head of the elders. Saffron casually dropped that he knew all about the city invaders, then thanked them for clearing out the trash mobs, so his own squad could sweep in and steal the kills. Gripping their spears, the elf battalion braced for a massive bloodbath. But suddenly, Lungel stepped up, shouting that this wasn't the time to throw down, begging them to just listen. The boomer elf sneered, asking who the hell this random guy was. He dropped his whole resume, the legendary slayer of the monstrous dragon Hydrogar and the ultimate survivor of goddess Venus's 7 brutal trials. I am the great Lungel shook, to his core. Old Saffron yelled that he was totally capping, claiming Lungel was an ancient knight from way back in the lore. Panicking, the elder ordered his entire front line to stand down immediately, scanning him from head to toe. Queen Maya gave him an intense visual sweep. A second later, she dropped the bombshell to the crowd. This dude was 100% the real Lungel. Turning the tables on the elder, he demanded to know if the guy seriously thought this plague was man-made. Right on cue, a scout elf came sprinting in like his life depended on it, screaming about a code-red emergency. The queen demanded a sitrep, but before he could even spit it out, a soul-crushing roar shook the entire zone, leaving the queen totally paralyzed with fear, erupting from the tomb's entrance. A toxic green aura spiked, revealing the true nightmare. Voice cracking with terror, the scout shrieked that it was the dreaded death dragon. The ancient seal was officially busted, and this apocalyptic beast was wide awake. Meanwhile, back in the tomb, Orlanduco was speedrunning the dungeon layout, blasting down the stairwell. He deadass knew that sound was Sparazzi respawning. He realized the whole squad was going to have to raid up, just to stand a chance against this raid boss. But as he hit a choke point, a massive wave of mobs spawned to block his path. And annoyed as hell, he growled that he didn't have time for this filler trash and cleaved right through them. Down in Sparazzi's vault, the nightmarish death dragon let out a deafening roar. Flexing its dark aura, it straight up mocked the warrior, asking how long she really thought that flimsy seal would hold. Zero hesitation. Hoja, the badass white-haired adventurer, immediately dashed in, swinging her blade for a heavy strike. Popping her ultimate skill, she threw everything she had into a high-octane clash against the colossal beast. Not even flinching, the dragon charged up a toxic green hyper beam deep in its throat, and fired a nuke-level blast straight at her. But with insane reflexes, Hoja flawlessly sidestepped the blast and countered with a massive slash, right across the ancient creature's neck. Watching the critical hit land, the elves held their breath, praying they had finally one-shot the catastrophic dragon. But out of nowhere, the dragon tanked it and retaliated with a blindingly fast claw swipe, giving her zero time to react. Caught completely off guard, the blast slammed right into them, setting off a massive, deafening explosion. Flesh knitting back together in seconds, the beast scoffed, flexing that weak hits like that couldn't even scratch its immortal build. Pure panic set in. One elf totally lost it, screaming they were all doomed to die right there. But Hoja wasn't having it, charging straight into the chaos, roaring for the monster to just drop dead already. In a flash of blurring speed, the colossal beast launched another brutal strike, but Lungel tanked the hit, bleeding out. Lungel shot the adventurer, a weak smile, whispering that it had been a wild ride, all thanks to him. Giving his final props, he warned them that this was his absolute last stand. Deep inside the pitch-black cave, a bone-chilling scream of absolute agony ripped through the shadows. Hitting the giant pillars, our boy realized he had literally just stepped right into the burial ground of the terrifying Sparazzi dragon. Out of nowhere, a blinding laser beam zipped right past his face, taking the shot point blank. The beast shrieked in pure agony, as Lungel's ultimate attack shredded its scales, literally dissolving into glowing parts. The legendary hero burned through his very last drop of HP just to rip open a weak spot. His devastating blast blew a massive hole straight through the chest of the towering nightmare in front of them. Fading away, he yelled at the squad to not choke and lock in on this one shot. A literal golden ticket handed over by the legend himself. Malfunctioning and confused, the dragon snapped, demanding to know what the hell that elf had just done to its supposedly god-tier immortal body. Launching herself miles into the sky, the white-haired queen geared up for the ultimate finisher, packing insane damage. She rained down a catastrophic slash straight onto the gigantic freak of nature. Eating the hit raw, the dragon howled in misery, actually getting knocked back by the sheer kinetic force of the strike. Running on literally 0 HP, the monster locked eyes with our warrior girl and spat out a toxic curse with its dying breath, touching back down. The beast trashed them as absolute clowns right before completely shutting down, with the big boss finally wiped off the map. She stood proudly on top of the colossal corpse like an absolute boss. Spotting that the flesh wasn't healing anymore, the elves finally realized that the raid was officially cleared. The crowd went absolutely feral, screaming their lungs out that the adventurer and Lungel had actually taken down the terrifying dragon of death once and for all. Rolling up late to the party, Orlando realizes the boss fight was already over without him doing a single thing. Smash cut to the Dark Elf Kingdom, panning over their massive capital city. Inside the throne room, Elder Saffron is throwing a fit, stressing that the plague is still spreading even with the dragon dead. He doubles down hardcore, blaming the humans for setting this whole disaster up. But Queen Maya completely rejects his vibe, warning him that he is being way too paranoid about outsiders. Saffron, not backing down, claps back that the plague was super convenient, giving the humans the perfect excuse to track down the hero Lungel. Flashing a vial of the cure like a flex, he asks her if she honestly thinks this whole setup is just some random fluke. The queen stays dead silent. He drops his tone, claiming he is just trying to push for a path built on trust. But then he spins it, questioning if playing the trust game isn't actually the hardest mode, looking completely drained. The queen sighs, dropping the hard truth that things will go completely sideways if the humans are actually innocent. Plus, she asks how they could literally look the adventurers in the eye and deny them the cure just out of pure paranoia. Throwing down the gauntlet, she stares him down and asks if he even has a clue what kind of nightmare is lurking inside the city right now. Deep in that cursed zone, the big bad steps out of the shadows, the seventh apostle Derezi, the literal embodiment of the plague. A system pop-up confirms that this thing is patient zero. Meanwhile, scrolling through his map, Orlando spots that the dark corruption hasn't spread to his current zone yet. But still, his gut is screaming that something about this whole setup is super sus. Plotting his next play, he ducks into a sketchy cave tunneling straight toward Noir Farah. Halfway through, he stumbles across a dying dwarf, bleeding out on the dirt. Spotting a pile of bodies and a wrecked altar, he knows for a fact he hit the jackpot. He walks up to a weird little creature chilling right there in the Tyrant King's dungeon. He remembers the lore dwarves locked down the path, heading into the city, constantly beefing with the dark elves to claim the whole turf. Sure, they are smart, but they are violently toxic, jumping any outsider on sight without a second thought. That is exactly why people treat them like basic mobs. But it looks like somebody else already swept through and wiped them out, racking his brain over why they would fiercely camp this spot and never leave. The tiny creature chilling in his hand suddenly curls up and squeaks a warning alarm. Thanks to the heads up, he totally dodges a cheap shot from out of nowhere. He yells at the little guy, calling him Taco, to haul ass out of there. He casually mentions giving him the name, just because he literally looks like a crispy takoyaki ball. But a second later, he looks up and his jaw practically hits the floor, looming right in front of him. A massive, shimmering gold giant steps out of the shadows. Staring at it, the lore finally clicks. The dwarves absolutely refuse to abandon this zone, all because of the legendary underground gold tunnel. Finally clocking exactly what map he is on, he gets super hyped, realizing he actually remembers this iconic stage. Testing the game's mechanics, he reaches out and realizes he can actually grab a solid gold bar. Wasting zero time, he starts speed looting the entire treasure hoard straight into his inventory. Shockingly, the system swallows up the gold glitch-free. Hyped beyond belief, he screams at Taco that they are officially filthy rich. He starts vacuuming up every single gem and gold piece in sight. Riding a massive high, he literally dives into a mountain of coins. Rolling around like an absolute loot goblin, sprawled out over his new fortune, he daydreams about chilling here forever, without a single care in the world. But right then, some dark, heavy memories from his past randomly hit him like a truck. Snapping back to reality, he stands up, realizing he needs to stop acting so desperately. With a bitter sting in his chest, he admits to himself that he totally crossed a line. Suddenly, the adventurer Blade enters the chat, slashing through a dwarf with a brutal sword strike. Once wiped out, the dwarf cries over his lost gold, while Blade just stares down at him with zero hesitation and pure ice in her eyes. Crushing the coins under her boots, Blade casually mentions how wild this whole setup actually is. Moments later, the Dark Elf Minute pulls up, dropping info about a secret gold mining operation. Watching Blade and Minute head out, Orlando knows he has to move fast. He suddenly remembers that Minette is the literal NPC guide for Noir Farah, handpicked by Saffron herself. Realizing the girls just took a completely alternate route, he and Taco decide to secretly tail them. Deeper underground, an absolutely massive pile of gold bars paves the cave floor. Thousands of gold coins are just scattered everywhere like trash, flexing just how insane this treasure hoard really is. Out of nowhere, Orlando catches a weird noise and starts panicking about what is coming next. Seconds later, an absolute nuke of an explosion blasts right through the center of the gold stash. The shockwave sends him flying backward, ragdolling violently through the air. Both him and his little pet get yeeted completely across the cavern. Right after that, the entire cave floor caves in, ripping open a massive sinkhole. The camera then cuts to the gloomy city of Noir Farah, where a colossal, creepy shadow looms right over the skyline. Dropping out of the sky, the towering figure stretches across the buildings, digging its massive claws into the concrete to brace its landing. Totally lost, the Apostle Delezi looks around, having zero clue what server he just spawned into. Glitching out over the situation, he wonders why he is even here, since this definitely was not the drop zone. Suddenly a flashback hits him, Hildur flashing a toxic, sinister smirk. Then a rift rips open, showing exactly how he got dumped into this new world. With all his memories fully loaded back, Delezi screams in pure rage, demanding to know who honestly thought he would just play along with this script. Going absolutely unhinged, he roars Hildur's name, swearing to rot this entire planet down to its core. A toxic pitch-black shadow slowly creeps across the city blocks. Flooding the streets, it literally shapes itself into a living, breathing plague. Peering through her shades, Blade locks eyes with the enemy, looking dead serious and completely unbothered. Staring down this absolute unit, she hears the beast flex its own title, calling itself the Vision of Destruction. The monster then drops a dark warning, swearing that the whole region is about to reek of pure death. Standing tall in front of the two girls, the boss introduces itself as Delezi. Cutting back to the palace, Blade debriefs them on the absolute chaos that just went down in Noir Farah. Saffron confirms that Delezi is the mastermind behind this entire nightmare. Backing him up, Iris points out that things played out exactly like her prophecies predicted. She steps up as the clairvoyant who can actually fix this mess, explaining she came to squash any beef they currently have with the humans. She then drops the harsh truth: if they want to save Arad, they have to raid the Apostle and take it down. With the drama finally cleared up, the Dark Elves and humans officially squad up, forging a massive alliance. Leaving the kingdom behind, the adventurer heads straight into the danger zone where Delezi is camping out. Rolling up to North Mire, she spots a massive force field shielding the city of Grozny. Swarms of infected rabid monsters are charging in with pure bloodlust, clashing hard against the city's defenders. Sweating bullets, a guard screams for everyone to hold the line and keep the monsters out. He yells that they are getting overrun and need emergency backup fast. Suddenly, a warrior screams out Michelle's name, begging her for cover fire. Charging up her mana, she blasts a devastating magic attack straight into one of the infected freaks. A comrade begs her to hold the line, but she fiercely swears they won't let their only sanctuary fall. A gritty flashback hits. They were hunted down just for being different. This broken city, Grozny, was the one safe haven, where the ciphers could actually live in peace. Snapping back to the bloodbath. This twisted plague is driving everyone insane, stripping them down to wild, bloodthirsty beasts. Slashing through the chaos, Michelle grits her teeth. She has absolutely no clue how much longer they can hold off this brutal onslaught. Suddenly, a massive spike in energy shatters the barrier. She ditches the front line, sprinting through the ruined streets to check it out. Her heart pounds. Is the thing she's been hunting finally here? Busting into the clearing, she locks eyes with a colossal, nightmarish freak, just tearing the place apart. But squinting through the dust, something feels seriously off. Her jaw drops. She spots Orlando in the wreckage. What the hell is a normal human doing in this hellhole? Sprawled in the dirt, wiping sweat from his face, he lets out a heavy sigh of relief, bragging that some massive tentacle just saved him from a deadly drop. Brushing himself off, he scans the area, groaning. He's way too late, and the main event is already over. Thanks to a speed potion, he had snagged a solid 2-day head start on the adventurer. Strolling into Grozny, he was hyped to be the first one to crash the party. Flashing a cocky smirk, he declares that from this second forward he's calling the shots. Boom, Michelle Monaghan totally ruins his vibe, popping out of nowhere. How did you even get in here? She demands, eyes narrowed, interrogating him on what he actually is. He stammers out a garbage excuse, but catching her death glare, he instantly knows she isn't buying his nonsense. Out of nowhere, her scowl flips into a sly smirk. Actually, you're totally perfect for what I need. She drops her guard and asks for a favor, desperately needing a safe stash house for her crew. He just stares dead at her. Total silence, completely freezing out her desperate plea, as she keeps begging for a safe route. He casually levels his gun right at her face. Why would I do that? He sneers. Super confused, she stammers. What do you mean? But he just cracks up, busting into psycho laughter. I'm literally here to hunt down ciphers like you, he mocks. Right at that exact second, something massive slams into the concrete, shaking the whole block. The real nightmare has arrived. Sickening corruption erupts from the crater, lunging straight for Michelle, who screams in sheer panic, desperately begging for a lifeline. Watching this mess unfold, he clocks something insane. The corruption is completely glitching out the original timeline. She snaps, totally furious, and screams at him to shut his mouth, calling him a filthy mutant. Flashing a dark grin, he fires right back, brutally accusing her and her freak cipher friends of spawning this whole cursed plague. Taking the bait, her eyes glow with pure rage. She flexes her powers, totally ready to crush these so-called normal humans. She charges forward, flanked by a massive squad of her own clones, screaming that she's going to end him right here, right now. But as her deadly aura surges, he sweats a little, thinking, okay, maybe I pushed her a little too far. Out of the blue, gunshots ring out. A new player crashes the party, blasting Michelle's clones into absolute dust. Clocking those crazy precise moves, he instantly recognizes her. It's Blade, the badass adventurer. He quickly realizes he can't let Michelle start a deathmatch with the very person who came to save the day. Totally pissed off. Michelle groans that this nosy adventurer is way too early. He mentally notes that Blade is ridiculously overpowered and practically carries everyone in this zone. Out of options, he throws up his hands to bail, tossing back a snarky warning to watch her back next time she fights. Right then, another adventurer drops into the mix, eyeing the girl and asking, "Wait, are you really Michelle?" "I'm Louisa," she introduces herself, explaining she was dispatched by the Principality to hunt down the source of this plague. Backed up against the glowing barrier, Michelle turns and desperately asks the newly arrived adventurers for help. Creeping in the shadows, Orlando eavesdrops only to catch her coldly snap that she refuses to speak a word to them. Breathing a sigh of relief, he figures the drama is finally over, but the crucial trigger card still hasn't spawned. It hits him like a truck. This whole mess is just a side effect, not the real nightmare making its grand entrance. He pieces it all together. Hilda is pulling the strings, and her twisted game has officially started. Bam! A massive shockwave sends Michelle's iconic hat blasting into the sky. As a savage explosion rocks the street, Blade whips around just in time to see the girl slam brutally into the concrete. Louisa desperately shouts that they aren't trying to jump her, they just want to talk. Knowing the clock is ticking, he ghosts them, deciding to hunt down more mutated hotspots completely solo. His master plan: shadow their squad all the way to the Village of Pain, straight to the ultimate boss, Delezi. The trio creeps down the pitch-black, sketch-as-hell alleyways. Louisa gasps, totally shocked to realize that the glowing force field is actually holding the deadly plague back. Looking over her shoulder, Michelle aggressively reminds them to keep their end of the deal and protect the ciphers at all costs. Right on cue, Orlando swaggers out of the shadows. Flashing a cocky grin, he strolls right up to the crew and says, "Hold up a second, guys." He ordered the squad to hear out a woman named Azalea Lott. Totally caught off guard, Azalea demanded to know who he actually was. Then the massive twist dropped. Hilda's master plan was actually manipulating the adventurer into wiping out the apostles. To block that endgame, a shadow faction called the Grim Seekers had been forged with one core goal: keeping those apostles alive. Our MC pointed straight at Azalea, exposing her as the secret mastermind running the entire operation. Orlando connected the dots. She had been tailing the adventurer squad this whole time. Just like he suspected from day one, he also knew pushing forward meant they desperately needed Michelle's protective barrier. Flat out telling her he needed backup, he officially introduced himself as Orlando and pitched a serious deal. He broke it down. Stopping Hilda meant they absolutely couldn't kill the Apostle Delezi, hitting her with the hard truth about her main priority. He left her totally speechless. Azalea was mind-blown, realizing this dude had completely cracked her faction's deepest secrets. Orlando kept it real, telling her she didn't even have to trust him. He just wanted to wreck Hilda's grand design. It clicked for her. They might be playing by totally different rules, but their ultimate endgame was... Flashing back to her past, she remembered standing face-to-face with a cryptic figure who shared her exact same vision. Snapping back to reality, Azalea locked in a massive choice for what was coming next. Letting her staff hit the ground, she asked for his name one more time, still stunned, but she backed off on pushing for answers, doing exactly what others had done for her back in the day. Our boy dropped a warning that Delezi was lurking in the city of Reshpon and officially asked for her help. After handing over an item to tank the plague, she threw a cheerful goodbye to Taco. Watching him walk off, Azalea murmured that maybe he could actually unlock paths she could never reach. Later on, our MC popped open his status window and was hyped to see he had hit level 38. Caught completely by surprise, he wondered if you could actually grind levels just by surviving insane plot events. Brainstorming a fresh strategy, he geared up for the next brutal phase of the run. Hard cut to the battlefield. The adventurers were clashing against pure corruption and vicious mobs, flat out refusing to back down. Through a shattered window, a massive full moon bathed the city's pitch-black sky in an eerie glow. The sky seemed to welcome him, while Azalea yelled out a grim warning. Death literally couldn't touch that monster. Watching the chaos unfold, Orlando racked his brain on how to take down something that was basically immortal. Any second now, Hilder was going to rip open an interdimensional rift just to lock the entity inside a subspace void. Delezi was doomed to get trapped in an endless respawn loop, locked away forever with zero chance of breaking out. But burning through its absolute last drop of strength, the beast actually managed to shatter the dimensional rift. In a flash, it snatched the adventurer right off her feet and vanished into thin air with her. Right then, our MC started feeling the plague tearing through his own system as a lethal attack barreled toward him. Azalea threw herself in front to tank the hit. With one devastating swing, the monster launched her brutally into a pile of boulders. She crumpled to the dirt, totally out of commission, completely unable to keep clashing with the massive apostle. The impact was so savage that she was bleeding out fast. Seconds later, the protective barrier shielding Orlando started rapidly failing. Reality check, he hadn't planned for this at all. With Azalea down, Delezi taunted him to step up before it devoured the whole world. That's when Michelle charged in without a second thought, going all out on the apostle with maximum firepower. Meanwhile, our MC, practically drowning in the plague's debuff, got ambushed hard by the shadow beast. The monster's gigantic eye locked dead onto him, casting his terrified reflection right back. Pitch-black darkness started crawling over his face, completely hijacking his entire body. The world violently snapped, and his consciousness free fell into a shattered pitch-black void. Drifting through the broken shards, a flash of his past life as a streamer popped up. He kept sinking aimlessly, staring up in absolute shock. Suddenly, a massive highlight reel of his in-game memories started rushing right before his eyes. Hitting the grim realization that it was game over, a mysterious voice echoed out commanding him to reject his fate. In that split second, his in-game avatar materialized, standing face to face with his real-world self. The voice pushed harder, telling him that he was the only one who could write the next chapter. Dead serious, his avatar warned him that he had to carve out his own destiny. Finally, with eyes burning with resolve, he locked in a game-changing choice to fight his way back. Back in reality, Taco was literally drenching his body in healing potions. Orlando snapped awake, completely disoriented, only to realize every single one of his gnarly wounds had vanished into thin air. He instantly panicked, demanding to know what happened to the adventurer girl. Glancing up, the toxic smog had completely faded, leaving the sky crystal clear. Off in the distance, Michelle and Azalea were just staring at the whole scene unfolding. Wondering if this insane boss fight was finally over, Azalea saw zero trace of Delise and instantly hyped up the great adventurer's massive win. But lurking in the shadows, Orlando was just watching all of this go down, looking totally mind-blown. His brain was basically short-circuiting. Based on everything he knew, that adventurer should have been completely wiped from existence by now, yet there she was. Right then, the tiny little dude Taco finally seemed to put the pieces together. Out of nowhere, this pitch-black gooey stuff violently snatched our main guy. He instantly recognized that sickening aura, knowing exactly what it was, the corruption. Wrestling against the sludge, he gritted his teeth. He realized he just needed to rip open that dimensional rift one last time, even if the odds of actually pulling it off were totally sketch. But, honestly, he was feeling just confident enough to completely send it. His potion stash was completely tapped out. One tiny slip-up with this plague and it was straight up game over. "Yo everybody, zip it," he snapped, needing absolute dead silence to lock in and track down his target. Boom. He finally spotted a tiny tear bleeding between the dimensions. His eyes ignited with an intense glow as he geared up to unleash some crazy, never-before-seen power. Louisa was already trying to dip out, but Michelle firmly told her to hold up just a second. Pointing straight down at the dirt, she showed the squad this bizarre, glitchy rift that had literally just popped into existence. Channeling absolutely every ounce of his mana, Orlando let out a gut-wrenching scream, physically trying to pry the dimensional rift wide open. He could literally feel the toxic venom burning through his veins, but he didn't care. He just kept forcing it with everything he had. With one final agonizing roar, he dumped his entire remaining stamina pool and completely shattered the gateway open. A creepy pitch-black hand shot out of the void, making Michelle jump out of her skin. Seconds later, Hoja, our badass adventurer, stepped right back through the portal, scoping out the chaos like it was just another Tuesday. But then, out of nowhere, Delise spawned right behind her and went absolutely feral, launching a super aggressive sneak attack. Michelle was absolutely floored. She shrieked the monster's name, completely shook about how this thing managed to come back from the dead. A super eerie voice started echoing, complaining that Hilda's master plan would have worked flawlessly if it wasn't for this annoying interference. Back on the ground, Orlando was absolutely gassed out. Panting hard, he honestly couldn't even believe he actually managed to pop the rift open again. He gave Taco a quick shout-out for the hard carry, muttering that they desperately needed to head back to the guild base and heal up. But literal seconds before they could dip, swoosh, a massive portal ripped open right behind his back. Scanning the battlefield, Azalea's stomach dropped. Hoja had just mysteriously vanished from the map without a single trace. Super confused, she locked eyes with the portal and saw the little critter just floating there all by itself. Meanwhile, fueled by straight-up trauma from their last showdown, Delise completely lost it and blitzed the adventurer with pure rage. Michelle screamed out their name in pure shock, completely stunned that they somehow survived and made it back. Giving Taco props for the clutch potion, our guy casually mentions he desperately needs to fast travel back to the guild house. He spins around, staring dead into the very dimensional tier he just forced open. But suddenly something extremely cursed starts creeping out of the dark void. He gets aggressively yanked inward and full-blown panic mode activates. He has zero clue why his own rift is totally turning on him. A gross, shadowy hand suddenly snags Taco, violently ripping the poor little dude straight into the abyss. He lets out a brutal scream as that exact same hand latches onto his face with a death grip. Cut to the void. The adventurer's shoe is just sadly floating out in the middle of literal nowhere. A massive, overpowered vortex fires up, just vacuuming up absolutely everything in its path. Fighting against the insane gravity pull, he desperately claws at anything around him so he doesn't get sucked into the shadow realm. A vicious storm violently slams into him. He tries to quickly spam a skill, but his physical body literally starts shredding to pieces on the spot. Then he spots Hoja. The badass adventurer is just floating completely knocked out right in front of him. She's drifting through the void while he watches the whole crazy scene from afar. Out of nowhere, this massive glowing force field instantly starts materializing around the entire zone. She gets locked straight inside this giant glowing sphere of pure energy. Standing on his platform, he just watches helplessly as the barrier tightly seals itself shut around her. Locking in, he sprints forward like a madman, launching himself with absolutely every ounce of strength he has left. Popping a speed boost skill, he tries to clip inside before the force field completely shuts him out. And boom, he actually pulls it off, sliding through the portal at the literal last millisecond. Now inside, he instantly readies his weapon to aim for the core. He smashes right into the center of the sphere, desperately trying to shatter that protective shield. Cracking it open, he touches down on solid ground and lets out a huge sigh of relief. But then crack, a creepy dark fragment randomly plummets into the dirt. Suddenly, an agonizing spike of pain hits him. Cut to Orlando completely passed out in this pitch-black room. That is until Hoja literally shatters a glass wall, completely busting her way into the secret hideout. She's totally going off about those Imperial goons and their messed up phantom arm experiments. Without missing a beat, she dashes forward and shreds one of the guards, who screams at her for trespassing. Sprawled out on the dirt, our MC finally pieces it together. He just crash-landed straight into the story of Blade's awakening. Watching her totally obliterate everything in sight, it hits him. This whole place is just a temporary dungeon, spun up by the system. It's a hardcore space where adventurers face their darkest past traumas just to level up and get stronger. Since she's busy slicing through literal phantoms, she doesn't even clock that he's actually right there watching the whole show. Glancing around, he spots a barrier holding back a massive, raging dimensional storm. He lets out a huge sigh of relief, knowing he wouldn't have survived a minute out there. But then this gross squelching sound grabs his attention. It's coming from a puddle of pitch-black ooze. He whips around, and his jaw straight up drops at what crawls out of the muck. The Apostle Delezi suddenly spawns right in front of him. Inside the safe zone, trapped in an endless loop of getting shredded and regenerating, the beast is writhing in pure agony. All because of that insane dimensional storm raging outside. Deciding to totally ignore that nightmare, he locks his focus on the adventurer. He knows his only ticket out is sticking with her. When she rips the rift back open, his master plan, just stealth follow Blade and wait for the perfect window to dip. But then, bam, a chunk of dark matter snipes him out of nowhere, and something wet starts dripping right down his chest. That creepy shadow slime rapidly infects the gaping hole in his flesh. Panicking, he realizes that deadly fragment slipped right through that dimensional rift. The toxic sludge erupts everywhere, shattering the crystals and morphing into a massive wave creeping right toward him. Suddenly, the monstrosity freezes dead in its tracks. Collapsing to the ground, Delezi looks like it's going through absolute hell and sheer torment. Staring at the horrific beast, pure dread washes over our MC as he realizes he is so incredibly screwed. A deadly plague starts violently corrupting the entire room. Barely breathing, Delezi growls that it desperately needs to drag itself back to its demon realm. Out of nowhere, our boy totally sends it launching a high-speed strike that violently smashes into the crystal wall. He actually shatters a jagged hole through the barrier, instantly drawing the monster's lethal gaze, peeking through the gap. The beast spots Blade standing on the other side, hissing that she's nothing but Hilder's pathetic little puppet. It lunges with terrifying speed to wipe her out. Without missing a beat, Orlando throws himself right in the line of fire. desperately trying to tank the hit, but it's completely useless. As giant claws rip right through his body, the demon demands to know who the hell he is. Shocked that a random human just stepped up, the beast suddenly feels something spike through its own hand and glances down. Brutal black spikes erupt straight out of Orlando's arm, violently impaling the monster. He roundhouse kicks a massive sphere of energy, gearing up for a crazy showdown right on the spot. Realizing he's somehow completely immune to the deadly plague, he's totally baffled. Seizing the perfect window, he rushes in and blasts Delezi with a brutal wave skill, smashing into the dirt. The monster snarls that its memory of Hildur is flooding back. Boiling with absolute rage, it screams that everything is that witch's fault. That beautiful white-haired manipulator. It swears on its life that it will never ever forgive a single one of them for what went down. The abomination unleashes a brutal barrage and Orlando frantically dodges the blasts. He curses out loud. These strikes are way too erratic. And the freak just keeps healing. Weaving past another lethal swipe, he backsteps to buy time and brainstorm a new strat. Annoyed, the monster taunts him, asking if he's just going to play tag all day. Spotting a split-second opening, Orlando anchors his feet and spins around, ready to face this nightmare head-on. He fires off a massive sphere of dark energy that lands a flawless dead-center hit, right onto Delezi. Ramping his power up to 200%, he charges up for the ultimate finisher. He throws literally everything he has at the beast. The dust settles and he drops to his knees, violently gasping for air and completely drained of mana, knowing damn well he can't kill an apostle. He just needs to stall its crazy healing factor for a bit. And in that tiny window, he pushes forward, gearing up for one last desperate strike against this god-tier boss. But the demon viciously counters and clips him. He barely manages to twist away at the final millisecond, but blood still sprays everywhere. From the sheer shockwave of that insanely fast swipe, even though he's banged up, he forces himself back up, ready to throw hands again. The monster mockingly praises his quick reflexes, though it's clearly not losing any sleep over him. Without warning, the beast slashes out its massive claws, impaling Orlando's legs. Looking down at him like total trash, it sneers that it would have been way easier if he just rolled over and died. But suddenly, the entire ceiling of the dungeon starts caving in right on top of them. Panicking, Orlando frantically wonders why the hell the whole instance is collapsing out of nowhere. Then Blade steps out into a glowing corridor, totally ready to bail. Watching her silhouette, it all clicks for him. She actually just finished her massive class awakening. Delezi gazes up, boom, there's his escape route. But sprawling in the dirt, our MC straight up vows he ain't letting him dip that easy. Delezi just smirks, telling the kid to embrace the brutal storm ripping his body apart. Barely breathing, our boy asks if this is some sick joke. Flashbacks hit hard thanks to this beast. The city is an absolute graveyard. Furious, he screams that thousands of innocent lives got wiped out for zero reason. The monster just shrugs, calling the whole tragedy completely fascinating, adding that everyone tried to slaughter him just for breathing in this world. Then he claps back, asking who this kid thinks he is to play the judge of right and wrong. Sweating bullets, our protagonist warns that running away now is literally playing right into Hildur's twisted trap. Delezi touches down, calling him pure garbage, but admits the kid definitely did his homework. Catching the beast trying to ghost him, he screams at him to freeze, but the clock already ran out. Feeling the toxic plague eating him alive, he shreds his vocal cords, screaming Delezi's name. A massive glowing orb of pure energy starts charging up right in the middle of the dungeon. Watching Delezi trying to bail, he hollered out in absolute desperation, demanding the giant freak to hit the brakes right now. Suddenly the beast whips around, totally shook and completely clueless about what's going down. He snaps his gaze upward, only to spot our blonde hero standing tall on a floating platform. Gripping his fist tight, he shoots the monster a death glare, swearing there's no way out. Floored, Delezi questions how on earth this mortal managed to seal up the dimensional rift solo. Boiling with rage, the beast blindly charges, roaring at him to rip that portal back open immediately. Our boy tanks the brutal hit head-on and gets violently yeeted backward, trashing him as a pathetic bug. Delezi viciously slams him straight through a solid rock wall. Dripping blood, he still braces himself to parry the colossal monster's next devastating strike. He actually tanks the mega attack with his bare arm, eating the insane impact. That crazy defense makes the beast flinch and stumble back for a split second. Gasping for air, our guy admits his HP is literally at zero and he's done throwing hands. He yells that he practically just saved the monster's life, but Delezi snaps back that now they're both hard stuck in this hellhole forever. Barking at the kid to stay out of his damn way, the massive beast winds up for a lethal charge. Our boy, face battered and bruised, locks eyes with the monster, pure unyielding hype in his gaze. Then he drops a massive truth bomb. Delezi could have easily roamed all over Arad, making the plague go viral, but he never once stepped foot outside the city of Reshpon this whole time. Screaming at the top of his lungs, he bets the monster knows exactly the reason why. Triggered by the cold hard facts, Delezi snarls at him to shut his mouth. Our MC pushes back, saying it obviously wasn't because the beast hated life. Flashing a deeply tragic look, he forces himself up and squares off against the towering giant. He keeps cooking, exposing that all Delezi actually wanted was just to go back home. The beast absolutely loses it, roaring at him to shut up completely, refusing to hear another word. Closing the distance, Orlando stares deep into its soul and keeps spitting facts. He admits he might be the literal only human in this entire universe who actually gets his vibe, claiming he knows exactly how that isolation feels. He plants his feet right in front of the raging monster. Then he drops the ultimate deal: if they just team up, they can both finally return home, with a completely different fire lighting up his eyes. He locks in his promise with absolute certainty and insane hope. Delezi looks totally glitched out, demanding to know what he even means. Seething with rage, it lashes out, screaming if this mortal seriously thinks he can relate to a literal god. He doubles down, yelling that a pathetic bug like him could never even fathom its deep-rooted trauma. But Orlando just swats the massive hit away with his arm squaring up for round 2. Sliding backward from the sheer force, he hollers at the beast that he totally gets it. He breaks down how he randomly woke up in this bizarre world, getting hardcore drafted into fighting a war that wasn't his. Staring out through the shattered window, he confesses his only goal was finding a glitch back to his own dimension. He wraps up saying the stars up in this sky, they aren't the ones he grew up under. Seeing his own tragic reflection in the kid, Delezi finally seems to snap out of it, the pieces of the puzzle finally clicking together. The monster realizes it actually shares a massive core wound with this random human. After a beat of silence, Delezi points out that the rift is still barely open. Spotting that tiny sliver of hope, the beast desperately begs our blonde boy to rip the gateway wide open right now. But our guy shuts it down, explaining that dipping now is totally useless, since that mastermind Hilder would just track him down in 0 seconds flat. He straight up warns Delezi that in his current nerfed state, he wouldn't even be able to graze her shadow, since she's an absolutely overpowered mage. Hilder treats the apostles like mere chess pieces, pulling their strings however she wants. That's when it hits the monster. There was one crazy wild card that even a mastermind like Hilder could never have predicted. He drops a hardcore metaphor, saying they're just disposable actors who were supposed to be completely written out of this play, face covered in battle scars. He explains Hilder is 100% convinced Delezi is already dead. If they crash her script right at the ultimate climax, they could literally nuke her entire grand plan once and for all. Betting it all on this so-called fair trade, he locked eyes with the beast, pitching a crazy team-up to wreck their common enemy. Delezi wasn't buying it, demanding to know why the kid wanted him to stick around if he was just gonna dip. Orlando kept it 100, admitting he had passed up way too many chances to bail out of this hellhole solo. But instead of ghosting, he chose to stay and throw hands with every enemy that spawned. Screaming that the clock was ticking, he hollered Delezi's name. The tension peaked. The giant boss literally looked away, finally actually chewing on this wild proposal. Suddenly, slimy tentacles whipped out of nowhere, completely tangling our boy up and locking him down tight. Pissed off, he roared, asking if this absolute raid boss was seriously gonna rot in here forever just to protect his massive ego. As he kept screaming the boss's name, the entire dungeon literally started crumbling to dust. Panicking, he thrashed wildly, fighting to rip free from the monster's brutal grip. But he got violently dragged into the pitch-black abyss, completely helpless as the shadows swallowed him whole. Plot twist. Delezi smirked, claiming he totally wasn't trying to help, but admitted he was intrigued. Our MC just flashed a knowing grin. But the boss wasn't handing out freebies, demanding he prove his worth first. Confused as hell, our boy asked how to earn that trust. The beast snatched him up, growling that if he failed, he was literally trash. Furious, our guy barked at the monster to open his eyes and watch closely, flexing that he could morph a piece of himself into a totally loyal clone. Busting out laughing, Delezi finally locked in their crazy alliance. Taking off into the sky, the beast wrapped its massive wings around our hero, shielding him from the raging apocalyptic storm. Then the boss demanded to know the actual game plan for breaking out. Squinting at a microscopic dimensional rift, even he was sweating over how they would squeeze through. The exit tunnel was insanely tight and rapidly glitching shut. Flashing a cocky smile, Orlando casually dropped that all they needed right now was raw thrust. Charging up every last drop of mana, he prepared to yeet himself toward the exit. Right before liftoff, the boss randomly asked for his real name. Bracing for impact, Orlando shouted his answer, ready to blast out of that cursed dimension with insane momentum. He skyrocketed straight at the rift, firing off a massive energy blast to pave the way. He practically threaded the needle through the collapsing tear in space, while the glitchy portal clamped shut faster by the millisecond. Pushing way past his limits, he channeled max power straight into his arm cannon. A blinding energy drill erupted forward, shredding right through the rift at the literal last second. The moment he popped out, the portal instantly snapped shut behind him. Smashing into the ground on the other side, he collapsed straight to his knees, finally out of the danger zone, screaming in pure relief. He hyped himself up, yelling that he actually survived. But out of absolutely nowhere, something violently tackled him headfirst into the dirt. It was just Taquito aggressively smothering him with hugs. Our MC started screaming at him to back off, choking out that he was literally going to die from the squeeze. Back in the dimensional rift, Delezi solemnly vowed to wait, calling him Orlan Dork. Dork on D's nuts, our boy savagely clapped back. Meanwhile, cutting over to Sharan, she was in full boss mode, barking out orders left and right. She commanded them to hit up the hospital and bail out the Northmire refugees. Wrapping up the stressful meeting, she sighed that the rest of the paperwork could wait until tomorrow, and gave her squad a quick shout-out for their hard work. Finally alone, she aggressively vented her frustration. Homegirl had not caught a single break since that whole messy drama with Ophelia went down. She could not help but wonder where the heck that crazy adventurer went during all this chaos. Suddenly, a raspy voice called out. She literally froze in the middle of the hallway, totally shook. Our boy magically appeared right in front of her, dripping with blood, and casually asking if she had any spare HP potions on her. Before she could even answer, his legs gave out and he face-planted straight into the floor, running on absolute 0 HP. Quick scene cut. The camera pans over the massive guild headquarters under the moonlight. Hours later, Orlando finally started booting back up, though he was still super groggy and completely lost. Blinking his eyes open, he desperately tried to piece together what just went down and where he even spawned. Scanning the room, he instantly recognized the fancy VIP quarters of the guildmaster. Out of nowhere, a calm voice asked if Sleeping Beauty was finally awake, as she stood there swirling a healing potion in her hand. Yep, it was Sharan. She checked his vibes, asking how he felt, and casually dropped that she had patched up all his gnarly visible gashes. Throwing her a quick thanks, he groaned that his whole body felt like a brick. Sharan did not miss a beat, stating that made total sense since he had been completely knocked out in a coma for an entire week. Hearing that stat, Orlando went into full-blown panic mode. Telling him to chill and not get it twisted, she fiercely warned that she was not giving a single thing back. In a flash, a massive magical barrier snapped into place, totally locking down every single exit in the room, trapping him inside. Cornering our boy like prey, she demanded he spill the tea with absolute zero lies. Her eyes narrowed as she brutally interrogated his true motives. For smuggling a literal piece of Delezi right into the city limits. She snapped at him, asking if he even grasped the insane danger warning that, depending on his next words, she would not hesitate to snitch on him to the authorities. Realizing his excuses were trashed, he finally caved and decided to drop the whole truth. Taking a breath, he exposed that in reality. He casually drops that he squared up against Delezi, leaving the white-haired mage totally floored. Orlando breaks it down, explaining some shady figure hijacked Delezi's twisted powers to nuke the arid continent. Sharon completely snaps. She demands to know if he's actually defending the monster who caused mass casualties. But our boy admits he struck a dark deal, helping the beast get revenge just to make it out alive. Ripping his shirt open, he reveals a gnarly fragment embedded right in his chest, a twisted tracking device to make sure he holds up his end of the bargain. Looking at him like he's lost his mind, she demands to know why he would ever shake hands with a literal apostle. Desperate, he begs Sharan to help him hack the fragment and weaponize its insane powers. She hits him with a major reality check about the massive risks, but he aggressively doubles down, swearing he's got a master plan. Locking eyes with her, he fiercely begs her to just trust him. He promises he'd never let a toxic plague wipe out the city on his watch. Her face drops dead serious. She asks if he even grasps the sheer amount of trauma they've already survived. Stepping uncomfortably close, she decides to just play dumb and pretend this entire insane conversation never happened. Reaching out, she channels her magic to blast through the fragment's seal, but she makes it crystal clear if things go south, she is washing her hands of this entire mess. Orlando practically bows in relief, thanking her nonstop. But Sharan immediately shuts it down bluntly, stating she still thinks he's dead wrong. We get a quick flashback where Sharan admits she's only returning a massive favor since he saved Phoenix's life earlier. She then gives him a heads up that purging this corrupted energy is going to take a brutally long time. He's cool with that, but suddenly panics and asks where all his precious gear went. Sharon reveals his main sword, and it is absolutely deep-fried by Delezzi's toxic plague. Seeing his best weapon totally cooked, Orlando literally bursts into tears. As she explains the rot infected everything he owns, he realizes begging Linus the blacksmith for a fix is completely pointless since he has 0 crafting mats left. But then a light bulb goes off. Since he just leveled up anyway, he can just drop cash on a totally brand new overpowered loadout. A massive grin spreads across his face as he remembers he's sitting on over 100 million gold. Hyped out of his mind, he starts daydreaming about the insane haul he's about to cop. Strutting down the street, he spots someone walking ahead of him. He thinks they look pretty solid, even if their fit is a little extra. But the second they turn around, Orlando is left utterly paralyzed and completely speechless at what he sees. Staring at this cursed, mismatched avatar, a random girl pops up asking where she can get one, totally jump-scaring our blonde hero. Rubbing his bleeding eyes, he mentally declares this cringe fashion disaster is honestly worse than Delezzi's deadly plague. Suddenly, the whole concept of in-game avatars, it's not just a basic cosmetic system to switch up your drip. Unlike normal skins, these pieces actually buff your stats and supercharge your character's combat skills. Realizing he desperately needs that stat boost, he sets out to hunt down a legit premium shop in the city to gear up. Pulling up to a super high-end boutique, a massive, flashy welcome sign greets him right at the entrance. 2 ridiculously hyped clerks, Hills and Dalvey, drag him inside Hills's boutique. Blown away by how bougie the place is, he steps in while they tell him to take all the time he needs browsing. Hills aggressively flexes that her shop stocks literally everything from vintage classics to the freshest seasonal drops. But secretly sizing him up, she pegs him as a clueless newbie with cash to burn and starts scheming how to completely drain his wallet dry. Meanwhile, Dalvey smoothly promises him that he can leave his entire glow-up in her hands, 0 stress guaranteed. Suddenly it hits Orlando, since the main auction house is totally offline, tapping into this avatar market is his best play right now. Out of nowhere, this bizarre figure spawns right in his face, leaving our boy insanely confused. Shoving a massive catalog in his face, Hills points out all the exclusive new drops for the week. Then she flips to a wild alternate option just in case he's trying to go for a more elite high-fashion aesthetic. Orlando thinks the gear is pretty dope, but admits actually wearing it feels weirdly like squeezing into skin-tight spandex. Without warning, they yeet a random item at him, claiming it's an absolute must-have if he wants that main character, and cutting them off, he drops the hammer. He doesn't want basic cosmetics. He wants a highly coveted rare clone avatar. Caught off guard, Dalvey asks if he's sniping for specific stats. Flipping through the massive catalog, he realizes the interface works exactly like the game's original search engine. Since the full sets aren't listed, he bosses up and demands they bring out the complete matching bundles from the back. He meticulously scans through every piece, grilling them on the stat buffs, and tells them to sort the whole inventory by price. Then he casually asks if he can just mix and match, taking only the hair and belt from one specific set. After browsing forever, he doubles back and demands to see that very first item they hyped up earlier. Literally buried under a mountain of rejected catalogs, an exhausted Dalvey asks if he's finally satisfied with his brand new avatar loadout. Oh, he definitely is. Our guy is now completely stacked with massive bonus buffs to all his core stats. Smirking with pure satisfaction, Orlando calls this rare clone avatar an absolute win, super stealthy and totally overpowered. Ready to check out, he casually drops the ultimate question. So what? But when Dalby deadpans the grand total 200 million gold, Orlando's jaw instantly hits the floor, his brain completely short-circuiting. Eyes darting around the room, he desperately starts plotting the ultimate vanishing act to totally ghost this massive